I'm calling to order the May 14th meeting of the Auburn Select Board. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Select Board is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapters 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely, dial 408-650-3123 with access code 235-235-861. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeetings.com/join/235-235-861. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Is there anyone else in the audience also recording? Seeing none, please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This select board meeting is to do the finalist interviews for the town manager position. We are starting with Angeline Lopes Ellison, and she is going to be coming in just a moment. Hi, how are you? Can we call you Angie?
Please.
Okay, wonderful.
Call me Angeline, I think I'm in trouble.
So we have some questions, but first we'd like to give you the opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself. So if you can just in about 5 minutes, give us a little bit of overview.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to address not only the community, but also the select board for this position. I think Auburn is an incredible community. It works well in regards to my interest in it because it's about the same size of the communities I've worked with. It's small, it's intimate, but yet has opportunity for some level of development and growth. And it may be just an issue of creative development as opposed to big development. I have been, and I guess I can give you a rundown of my history. I used to work in higher education. I retired my position in higher ed as Dean of Students at UMass Boston. I had worked in higher ed for about 20 years, and ironically, I tell people higher ed is actually my outlier career. I had been a political science for undergrad, and graduate work was American studies with every intention of working in government. Thereafter, I spent some time I lived in Sturbridge and had lived in Sturbridge for about 25 years, became part of the school committee, got involved with not only our local school committee, but the regional school committee as well as the select board, and I served on the select board as well. So I understood how government started to work. I was part of the president of the Friends of the Library and did a lot of volunteer work and continued that work. I worked part-time in Blandford, and while I was in Blandford, I went through, it was a part-time position. I said this to the department heads yesterday. Joe, it's my full-time job with my part-time pay, because you can't do this job on a part-time basis. You spend a lot of time and dedication to the job, the community, and you can't do it 20 hours a week. It's almost impossible. After I was going through a divorce, I needed to find a full-time position. I ended up in Uxbridge. I was in Uxbridge with the hopes of developing my position, and it was a town manager position as well. And I worked consistently to make the community grow and develop. The cannabis industry was first getting started, and that was a big factor in that community. So I helped them pioneer and work through some of those challenges. One of the things that unfortunately made me leave Uxbridge was in the process of being there, I discovered that the town accountant was embezzling funds from the municipality, along with other municipalities that he also was a consultant to. The board and I had a difference of opinion how to handle it. They wanted to deal with it internally. I felt it was beyond the scope of an internal issue and needed to be dealt with through the state. I called in the Attorney General's office, the Inspector General's office, and the Division of Local Services. I take full responsibility in regards to what happened in Uxbridge. I know I consciously went against the board's wishes, but the integrity and the ethics of it all merited me doing that. I would do it all over again. Ultimately, the board and I decided to part ways because it wasn't going to really work out after that. To my benefit, the gentleman got indicted, sentenced, and is presently serving a 3-year term for embezzling $900,000 from the communities. And in that situation itself, that was, and I always say, that's only what they could prove. I'm sure there was a lot more other things that may have happened. From there, I went to North Adams, and I worked for the mayor. I was chief of staff. I enjoyed it. It was in the Berkshires. The fun fact is that whenever it started snowing, people would say, "You need to go home. There's going to be a blizzard." I'm like, "No, it's just flurries." 10 minutes later, it's a blizzard. And I started to understand the dynamics of in the mountains is different than in the valley. And so whenever I'd see a sprinkle, I'm like, I gotta go home now. But I enjoyed the community. It was great. It had a lot of opportunity and a lot of challenges, but things that could be managed. The mayor, because that was during COVID, decided he wasn't going to run for reelection. And because I was chief of staff, the new mayor typically brings in their own. So I went to Fairhaven, and from Fairhaven, I actually have all of the accomplishments, because one of the things that I do feel that I am is a doer. I like to see things done and results. And strategic planning as well as project management aspects of it. If I may just hand that over. But when I was in Fairhaven, and sort of the transition that happened there, the newly elected select board determined that they were not going to renew my contract. I was I was in negotiations with the previous board. In the middle of it, an election happened, and 2 new people got on the board, and 2 months later, they said they were going in a different direction. So I'm here now because I feel like Auburn, and again, I think a lot of the things that have happened in the consistency and the stableness of the municipality, the governance, has a lot to do with my interest in being here. I think it's got a lot of growth potential. Julie has been incredible in establishing it. Again, I live in Sturbridge and lived in Sturbridge up until about probably a year ago. I understand the community, I understand its needs, the commercial base, some of the challenges as well as some of the dynamics of the community.
Thank you so much. I'm going to let my colleague, Mr. Carpenter, start with the questions.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for the introduction. So this is going to go to motivation and fit. What draws you to the town manager position in Auburn, and how does your professional background, leadership style, and personal values align with our community's goals and challenges?
Can you repeat that so I make sure I cover everything,
Absolutely.
please?
What draws you to the town manager position in Auburn, and how does your professional background, leadership style, and personal values align with our community goals and challenges?
What draws me here is, again, the size of the community, as well as having a commercial base as well as a residential base. I think it's a good mix and it's a good blend. One of the things in regards to Auburn is it's a small community, but it really isn't, because you have so much influx of people coming in, whether through the stores. I spoke to a gentleman when we were doing the meet and greet, and, you know, I've seen it develop as well. I remember when all that section was, you know, homes in woods, but now it's like that, you know, you have your auto mile, the same as Saugus. And so all of that keeps developing and growing, and I think all of that adds to the benefits of the community. One of the things that, for my professional background, is some of the challenges you have that I've seen from the public records and meetings is I've had different experiences in management roles, and my higher education experience as well brings a unique perspective in regards to being able to just let people voice their opinion. You know, when someone's angry or someone has a difference of opinion, it's not personal. It's about the issue. It's about the concept. It's about allowing people the opportunity to, and part of government is having a diverse perspective, as well as allowing, sometimes the majority has the word, but also allowing the minority a voice and an ability to speak in a room. My background has, again, like I said, has been extensive. I've had different models and the biggest one, I think that's more comparable to here, is my Fairhaven experience, in that it too was a representative form of government with town meeting. You have about 120. Fairhaven had 400. It claims and will not, and is proud of it being the largest representative form of government in Massachusetts. My leadership is grounded in my experiences as well as my professional background, also relative to higher education and municipal government, is really in regards to collaboration. I work extensively with, the analogy that I used is that I am the conductor in an orchestra. I don't ever, and the department head, staff, and all of the different boards and committees are playing, they each have their role. Everybody knows when they're, you know, their instrument, they're skilled at it. I don't know how to play all of the instruments, but I definitely know when you're supposed to be coming in and how to engage you and put you in, when you need to take a back seat and move forward. And that's the best analogy in regards to not only my leadership style, but in how I bring forward how I move a municipality, and making sure that everybody who needs to be in a room playing a particular piece understands that piece and how it's supposed to work. My role, and I see it in regards to how my goal and vision is too, and from seeing some of your meetings, I think in the same aspect, is really about, I provide you the best and most accurate information so you can make the best decision for the community. You're elected to represent the municipality, and so providing you those information and documents and anything else you may need. And each of you may need something different within the same issue. You know, one of you may prefer it on email, someone else may want to have a conversation, someone else would prefer a text that just says, check your email. And in working and being able to make us work as a team as well, because ultimately we're serving the residents and making sure that the residents are getting the services that they need. I think I covered all the topics.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've been asked to just mention that we have 10 more questions.
So I better talk fast.
Exactly. So, how would you handle a situation where your professional opinion differs from that of the governing body? And outside of the extreme case from Uxbridge, can you provide an example of how you've navigated similar dynamics in the past?
Well, there've been times we've disagreed. My job is to provide you the information. If I think we should move in a particular direction and it wouldn't be Angie, think we need to move. It's myself, the department head, and wherever those issues are, and the stakeholders. We'll try to talk to you individually, talk to you, and try to understand the back and forth in regards to what your concerns are as well. Because there may be some things that you're seeing that I and the team have and can't see for whatever reason, and sometimes it takes that perspective. And I've been in situations in other communities where having an opposing perspective and having them talk and having an open mind allowed me to see things that if I had gone forward to how we were planning, we would have fallen off the cliff. But because of this different perspective, we're like, oh, let's do it this way, because we never thought of that consequence at all. And so it helped, and I think that's how I work. I'm always open to new understandings and perspectives. And if we were to ever disagree, my only ask is that we disagree in private, and in public, we show a unified front. If we disagree here, that it be respectful and not anything less than that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. How have you successfully fostered commercial growth or expanding the tax base in previous roles? And how would you balance the economic development with preserving Auburn's character and quality of life?
A lot of the questions, and I know I'm trying to be mindful of the 10 questions, in that sheet that I gave you talks about a lot of the developmental things that we have done. We were in a $2 million shortfall, and we were able to creatively change that and not do an override, because we tried an override before and failed miserably. So we got creative, looking and reevaluating the fee structure, looking at alternative sources, looking at grants, looking at, we had because Fairhaven was a very touristy area, and to some aspect Auburn too, because you get some people for when all of your festivals and everything else, but also when the Brimfield Fair happens, the same thing when, with Sturbridge and here, you get the flow over of all of that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to look at those types of situations. The governor, I think, has allowed for some flexibility in local receipts, local taxing, incremental changes that are allowed, in looking at that piece of it as well and seeing if we are maximizing those opportunities. Again, grants are always an opportunity and way to look at it as well.
Thank you. This question says, Auburn residents value a vibrant local economy. Can you share specific examples of how you've supported small business growth, entrepreneurial development, or revitalization of commercial areas in ways that reflected community priorities?
So one of the things that in promoting local businesses, and again, local businesses, not necessarily franchises or big box stores, I worked collectively with the Economic Development Committee. Prior to that, they started doing educational workshops for the small businesses. We brought in Mass Hire, to help them and learn how to hire people, utilize some of the state revenues and some of the state resources, so it's cost-effective for the businesses. We brought in, and I think Worcester has a few as well. There was in New Bedford, we brought in a couple of agencies that helped them to promote their, and teach them how to promote their business, as well as, prior to working with the committee, there was never an interest, and we started doing ribbon cuttings. And as we were doing it as a formal introduction of the business to the community, it got in our town paper as well as the, the town website and social media, so that promoted the business as well, and that kept going. And I think that is a passive way of development within promoting businesses without having to really change a lot of the dynamics of the community and still maintaining its integrity. Here, I think it has a small community feel in an industry, like a commercial-based. It's almost like the yoke is the residential and commercial and quaintness of the town, and then the outside is a lot of the commercial bases that you have. And I think finding that balance and making sure that that balance is consistently within the values of the community and the vision of the community. Obviously, utilizing the master plan itself is important to see what the community really wants to move forward with. I can bring in, and I can work with the development department and the planner to bring in businesses, but if the community is not going to accept it, it means nothing. But so changing it a little bit and making it a more quaint community would help.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Could you describe a time when you addressed a challenging concern from a resident? What strategies did you use to build trust, resolve the issue, and ensure appropriate follow-up from your team?
There's so many that, because residents, I have an open door policy. And it's not necessarily the cliche of an open door. If my door is open, anyone can walk in, from staff to residents to, anyone who has an interest to come in and talk. I engaged the residents and become part of the community, so I think it establishes trust, and it'll add into sort of my 90-day, 100-day acclimation or transition, if the successful candidate, to be able to get to know all the stakeholders, get to know, one of the things, and again, when I answer questions, I give you examples because I've lived it and I've done it. I go to every single board, every single committee, every single organization's meetings. I participate in all of the festivities, the parades, and I bring my kids. Sometimes they get mad, but they're coming. And once they get here, they have a grand old time. And so I become engaged and involved so that when people see me, and it's not only when there are problems, then they can feel comfortable enough if they see me, at one of the festivals walking down the street, they can say, "Hey, Ange, this has been, an issue." I can't give you specifics because there's so many concerns that residents have had from, I can say, a gentleman who's built staircase not to code, but felt like it was maintenance or repair as opposed to reconstruction, and having to navigate that with the building commissioner and what the code says there. So we've gone from there to extremes where we literally had a woman and her daughter and their dog living in their car because there was and so working to make sure that all the social and social services were in place to help her and her daughter find suitable housing.
Thank you.
Back to me. All right. So we're moving on to leadership and team balance. And just keep in mind, we may have some follow-up questions, so we do want to leave time for that. How do you navigate the sometimes competing demands between serving the public and supporting municipal staff? Can you share an example that demonstrates your ability to lead with fairness, transparency, and balance?
So I am very open, transparent, and at times direct. I don't like ambiguity. I don't like things that are unclear. If I'm not certain what you're saying, I'll keep asking you questions until I understand what you're saying. So I move in that space, which then leads to transparency. Anything and everything, and I think the role of government is to allow people, and, you know, there've been situations in some of the other communities I've worked in where certain members of the board's like, oh, don't give them that information because then the vote won't go this way. I'm like, I have to give them that information. It's whether they oppose it or not, they have a right to that information and my interpretation of that information. And what they do with it is part of the democratic process and what they have a right to and information to. Balancing that with what leadership in regards to the staff and the department heads, I truly believe that anything and everything that happens falls on me. It doesn't fall on the department heads. I will, to the best of my abilities, protect all staff members, their livelihoods. This is a job. They come in, they do the best they can with the skills that they have and their abilities. I'll grow and develop them to whatever skill sets they're willing to go to. But when there's a conflict or a crossroad where a department head would be in a position to be belittled in any public forum, I would step in and I would have that conversation with them off record, offline, behind closed doors, if it's an issue that is legitimately what the resident is saying and or if it's the other way. But, you know, obviously keep you informed as well of anything through whatever means that you prefer me to communicate with you.
How have you supported the professional growth and development of your staff? What management styles or techniques have you found most effective in building a strong, motivated team?
I think a lot of the way that I manage is really with collaboration. Again, each department is a subject matter expert. Taking again the example that I used, that I'm the conductor and they're the skilled musician. They know, I don't know what the fire chief and his regulations and fire codes are. In the same way, I don't know exactly all of the zoning and regulations for the building commissioner. If you do a stairs, does it have to be 9 inches or 15 inches wide? They know all of that. My job and my skill level is to be able to manage and get the best out of them, so that way they're doing their best in their department and providing the service that the department is allotted. I believe in professional development. I believe in allowing staff and succession planning as well, because there may be someone who has always been the quiet one in the corner. Once you give them more responsibility and opportunity, they grow and flourish. And that has happened in another community that I've been in, and 2 staff members that typically, usually everyone's looking for people with degrees, and they had no degrees. They were support staff. They were put in leadership roles, and they blossomed, and they were never given that opportunity. One of them said for me to promise that she would never have to go to treasurer school, which so she didn't, but we did it all internally. There were 4 staff members, and we were able to find funding to get them through the Suffolk University MMA joint certificate program. And so they understood government, so they could help in a lot of different areas. I do a lot of cross-training, worked with the collective bargaining collective bargaining units to create and get cross-training into the contract, so that way if people are, the offices will always be open and serviced, restructured offices so that's more effective and efficient. We used to have 2 part-time offices, and we ended up all working as a team. I didn't go in and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We sat down, we talked about it, would this work, someone came up with a different idea. We put all of the support staff in one office, so when the part-timers, they worked opposite, so there was always office coverage, and there was a full-timer, so when she was on break, there was always office coverage as well. So, and we ended up when we did all that, in restructuring it, staff got a bump in their pay, and we created another position and still saved money. So I have a lot of these creative ways of working within the confines of MGL and financial laws and regulations.
If selected, how do you envision integrating yourself into the Auburn community as both a leader and a neighbor? And what role does the community presence play in your leadership philosophy?
I think I addressed some of it in, going to all of the events, being present. One of the things that I do in all of the town halls, I have a weekly walk around. Initially in the beginning, it becomes a daily walk around where I just go to different offices, and so that way people get used to seeing me, and when they see me, it's not always when there's a problem. And so that way things work better, and people feel more comfortable being able to come to me with issues or concerns and not feel like the only time I show up is when there's a problem. I definitely feel that in my progression within this field, and I think I'm a seasoned professional at this point in municipal government. I've learned a lot. I think if you had told me when I first started, everything had to be based on MGL, right? It was black and white. MGL said this, MGL said that. And having learned, gone through various different experiences, that there's definitely a perspective in regards to the human element, as well as sometimes people just want to be heard, and it's important to let them speak. It's important to understand their perspective. They may not agree with you. I was in a community, I spent probably 3 hours explaining to someone how municipal finance works and how some of the issues that we were dealing with was working. The gentleman was engaging, wanted to know more. The more he wanted to know, the more I told him. Showed up at town meeting and voted completely different. I learned how to talk about finances, but that's part of the process. Everyone's like, why did you? I didn't get mad. It was a learning experience for him, and he got the information he needed, and we move on. So, it happens.
Please tell us about a professional challenge or situation you faced for the first time, one that required you to step outside your comfort zone. How did you educate yourself, build a response plan, and involve your team or stakeholders in resolving it?
I think the biggest one is the situation that I mentioned earlier from the other community. It was a learning experience because I had really thought, I know MGL, I know the rules, I've read their policies, I know everything, and I can cite it, and just so you know, once I get the position, if offered the position, I will know every single policy, and it's just a thing that I have, but I would definitely put that aspect of it. I learned that sometimes relationships are stronger than doing what's right. I also learned that sometimes doing what's right doesn't always turn out with the best resolution. And so there's a lot to be learned in that aspect of it. And I think that was the biggest shift in my career, having studied political science, having studied American studies, and the theories and the processes and understanding it. I was very much an academic, and this had nothing to do with academics. It was all people-based.
So do you have any experience overseeing a municipal golf course or a similar recreational facility? If so, how have you approached budgeting, operations, programming, and community involvement in such facilities?
So you would be my first golf course, but I have overseen a ice skating rink. I have overseen a bunch of fields. I've overseen, I think they don't do public pools anymore and stuff like that. But so I have seen overseen when I was in airport. When I was in North Adams, I somehow, because the airport manager left, I became the airport manager. Did I learn a lot? Whenever there was ice storm, who you should call. And so I've done a lot of unusual aspects. Golf course, I think, would be my first in a municipality, but I don't see it any differently than some of the other entities and recreational aspects of it. One of the things that is important to be able to see is if revenue is an issue, looking at and making comparables and doing with other communities and costs comparing if we're being feasible with what we're providing. If you're at $5 and the closest golf course is starting at 50, you need to look at those aspects and also look at what other communities are doing. I know that there's a municipal golf course in the Cape. I want to say it's either Barnstable, and they run an incredible facility. And so I would probably invest in learning and stealing a lot from them.
Thank you. I'm going to open it
We
up.
actually I skipped a question.
Okay.
So thank you to Mr. Crane. So you're not out from under the spotlights just yet. How do you communicate and engage with residents in the business community when important events affect short and/or long-term community goals and opportunities?
It depends on what it is. If it's an aspect that is, so example, when I was in Blandford, there used to be 10 people. Blandford was a small community. There was about 1,000 people in Blandford, 1,200 at most. There were 10 people or 15 people that would make all town meeting decisions because that was all that showed up. My first year there, I'm like, you mean these 10 people are making the decision for the entire community? And I couldn't grasp that concept. So I ran a program in which it was called, because they only had landlines at that point. I mean, some people had cell phones, but because it was part of the last mile for the internet that the governor, since Baker, has been trying to get it out there. They finally do. But at that point, when I was there, they didn't have it. We did a Verse 911 campaign. Literally, I started for the first probably a month and a half before town meeting, hey, do you want only 10 people to make a decision on how the finances of the town work? And each time there was something else. Do you know what's on the warrant? They're trying to get the town administrator to work another day, little teasers. There was 400 people, well over 400 people who showed up at the town meeting, and I remember two of the select board members said, I don't think we've ever seen this happen before. So and I can't say, I can give you example of things that I've done. I'd have to see the specific issue, what are you trying to accomplish, and strategic, because one of the things that I know I'm good at is strategic planning, and also making sure that we have tangible aspects of reaching and goals to move forward and moving things forward and differently with minimal impact.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So those are the 10 questions we have. I did want to open it up to board members if they had follow-up questions.
Sure, nobody's surprised that I have follow-up questions. Thank you. I just wanted to ask if you can dive a little bit deeper into economic development and any experience you have from other communities that you could bring to Auburn in terms of expanding our commercial base, the type of entities you might target, how you go about beefing up our economic development department, supporting them, and then going out and recruiting, working with the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Worcester Chamber of Commerce, et cetera.
So with economic development, there's a lot of different methods. I would have to dive into, in all seriousness, the economic development plan as well as the master plan, because that's really what guides where like I think I said earlier, I'm not going to bring in a box store if the town is amping for local mom and pop shops. So you need to look at those aspects of it. I need to bring in the stakeholders in regards to being able to see, and as well as the department and the committee as well, and have everybody and all the stakeholders in place. My brain is always finding solutions and can find creative out of the box. And actually, most of my staff they jokingly made a sign for me that says, think outside of the box. And so we're so stuck on MGL that this is how it's always been done. And you can still have the same result of this is how it's getting done with the result, but there may be more creative ways of getting to it. One of the things for Auburn, I think that I don't want to say struggle with, because you do have such a strong commercial base, but a lot of the stores are closing, me going to Sturbridge, right, where the Harley Davidson, there's like one or two shops there and the rest is closed. One of the things that I looked at before in trying to look at, and sometimes I do research just because I want to educate myself for no other reason, just to educate myself. I went to Connecticut and they were having the same thing in regards to like these major developmental plazas and malls with one store, and the developers wouldn't do anything. And one of the things that you can look at is creating a bylaw that says if there's not promoted business or other businesses coming in within a certain time period, you start imposing fees. And so that initiates and gives them an incentive to move forward. Again, I don't know the players. I don't know how big they are. We'd have to work collectively with the department heads as well as you to see what direction and guidance you're giving me to move forward in that, because again, what works there may not work here, and we have to tweak it to some difference in regards to it. The other piece is also if some of them leave it vacant because it's a tax write-off, so they don't have to do anything with it, and having that incentive, contacting the owners of the development in the plaza and saying what is the motivation, and looking at not only what some other communities in Massachusetts, but like I said, I went to Connecticut for this and discovered that there are, you can find different ways, and if you're zoning and some of your bylaws are, I think, the more leverage that the community would have.
You mentioned, again, creative ways and looking for grants and such. Can you provide an example of maybe a grant that a community received and you're most proud of, something like you worked hard to get and you received that, and what impact that might have had on the community?
I am a strong proponent of grants in every community. I think in that sheet, there's a list of all of the grant opportunities that we've tried, the basics that come through the state. The police department got the walkie-talkies. We got 2 electric cars and 2 charging stations through, for solar and trying to get green energy and sustainable initiative in the community because it was a green community utilizing some of the standards that were there. I can't say I'm, yay, I got each community is different. One community, we got Max Works grant because the cannabis industry was coming here, and because it was close enough, we literally not only built sidewalks to connect the downtown area to the industrial area, but also piping and sewer systems. So, yay for me, but, it's grants. And whatever we can need and find, if there's a grant out there, I will find it, and we will find it. And now with AI, you just have to, 2 words and you got 100 grants. But, also understand that some of the grants that are federally based may not be as readily available as had been in the past.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Please.
So, going back to your experience in other municipalities, where potentially, knock on wood, with the election next week, we're going to be building a new fire station. So can you talk to any experience you have overseeing from your previous positions a large municipal facility being built? Any experience you have with overseeing from a project management standpoint, OPM standpoint, et cetera?
So in all the communities I've worked with, I've always been the chief procurement officer. And so I've been certified as well. So I've had some level of responsibility. Because of the tenure in some of these communities, I've seen projects at the beginning, the middle, and the end, because it's not a 2-year or 3-year project. Typically, when you do a big infrastructure, at minimum, it's 5 years, if not more. So yes, I've done that. The beginning stages, I think, is really in Fairhaven. It's a $20 million project. Worked with DPW, the state. We utilize some of the ARPA funding to lower some of the costs to the residents, as well as we were able to secure a $1 million loan from the state at 0 interest, and that was the impetus to move forward with it. And I made sure that and we worked in tandem with another community, so because we provided some of their sewer services as well, so working with a regional approach. That has, and making sure that all of the regulatory aspects of MGL for procurement has been met, and they had an OPM and put in an OPM, and at that point, the project moved forward. I had to sign off on all of the documents because without my oversight, nothing could happen. In North Adams, they rebuilt the airport building, and I was there at the end of it. There were a lot of punch list items that were on there. The developer the construction worker wanted to get paid, and I wouldn't release the funds. And he's like, well, it's 90% done. I go, yeah, we're paying you to have it 100% done. So when all the dot items are done and all of those issues, and I walk through and then, it became a negotiation in regards to then, oh, I'll repaint this wall. I go, it's not repainted. You're going to paint it because it's still primer. And so he painted it and came back and goes, well, can you release $200? I said, when every single one of these things are done, I'll release the funds. So that tail end and making sure that everything gets done. I've also worked in Uxbridge when the fire station was being built there. They had a brand new fire station, and a lot of the contractors shortcut a lot of things in the middle. So when it started raining, you could see the water coming out from underneath because they didn't tie the pipe to the sewer. So it was coming into the building, so we had to stop construction and make them fix it. So yes, on multiple levels and in different aspects with different buildings. The biggest one was the fire station in Uxbridge, and the second was probably Fairhaven just recently. I think 20, it was estimated 20 million with all the deductions, but when all is said and done, it was probably closer to 30.
We have about 10 minutes left, so is there, please.
So I did want to ask, and I know we cultivated a lot of questions, but is there something that you would like to share with us, or a question we didn't ask that maybe you would like to, share with us and say, these are the great things, whatever? Again, we were limited, but I want to give you an opportunity to tell Auburn who you are, of what you're about, and anything that we might have missed.
Well, my resume speaks for itself. I think one of the things that I am well aware of and astute is the presence of Google. Someone said to me, Google is not my friend. But I want you to know that that is only a perspective and not necessarily who I am. I love what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. I bring all types of people together. And at times, when you say no to one wrong person, it becomes an issue. And I would hope that if there's any question in regards to anything, that you may find that you take who I am here and not necessarily the perspective that is being presented. Uxbridge, I own. I've said it, I own it. I intentionally was like, nope, it's not gonna happen. I didn't, I was like, but, in the long run, I was proved right. And I think the other piece that I really want you to know is that, once I come into a community, I become part of that community, and I really become engaged. I try to find out as much as I can. I try to see who, what, when, where, why, how. I participate. One of the things that I did in Fairhaven when I first got there also is I get the common vicular list licenses from the Board of Health, the health agent, and literally I go to except for, certain ones that are franchises with a capital M or a BK. I'll go to every single restaurant and have lunch there and talk to whoever's there or sitting and stuff like that. The best places, and I've said it before, is the best place that I've ever had conversations is at a Dunkin' Donuts, where there's the regulars that go in for coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I go in and I'll sit and have, a cup of tea and they'll talk and stuff like that. So I really do love this work as much as I've gotten beaten up in one particular community. It really, I love it. And I keep coming back, and I think for me, Auburn also represents a place that is comfortable. I know the area, I feel like I don't want to say it's home, but I feel like it's home, and I can fit into this community well. I don't have to learn about, now, where's the high school again, or where's the Auburn Mall, and any other places in the community, because I already know where most, if not all, the things are.
Thank you so much. We do have 5
I do
minutes
have one.
left. if
I
there's-
do have one question.
Absolutely.
And in fairness, I will ask every single applicant this. So throughout the years, I have heard from residents countless complaints about the lack of town manager living in town. What is your philosophy about living and working in town?
That's interesting. Well, I know that you have requirement, but also that the select board has waived it for the previous town managers. And so, that being said, I'm an empty nester, I'm flexible. There's benefits, and I guess, again, this is what I do because I'm a town manager. I'll give you guys all the information, you make the decision. There's positives and negatives to it. The positive is that the residents will feel like if your taxes are going up, you're being impacted too, which is, a factor that is more of a perception than reality. But it makes the residents feel better and understand, and it addresses some of the issues of, well, you don't live in town, you don't understand. So that one question gets answered. The downfall on the other side that I think is more is once you live and there's no separation of church and state, and that because of the nature of this job, you'll get burnt out. I can spend 12 hours here, 14 hours here, but knowing that there's someplace else that I can go that nobody knows who I am, it is a sense of relief for mental health as well. So, it's pros and cons. I don't necessarily have a philosophy in regards to what is better. I think, again, working in collaboration with each other, you guys have already seen successes when your previous managers didn't live here. I don't know, I wouldn't say you'd see anything different from me. But if it was, blood, sweat, and, you're going to kill me if I don't live in town, I'll get a place. It's not that big of a deal for me. My children are in college, so.
Thank you.
So much. We are all set. Thank you so much for sitting and telling us about yourself.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
It's a tough guy, but
I think John is. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. Can I have that extra copy at the end? Yeah. Dan, are there extra copies of what she provided
Yes.
of that for the record?
Madam Chair, because we have a few minutes in between, and I don't want to rush the applicants,
Sure.
make a motion that we take a brief recess.
Strange is here.
Is he ready to go?
Yeah, let's just continue.
I am, what is the will of the board? I'm happy to
Let's
continue.
continue.
Okay. We are all set, please.
I didn't know.
Hi, good, how are you? So you are our second interview tonight. This is Mark Strange. We're going to start and give you about 5-10 minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we have 10 questions.
Great.
Excellent.
So I dive right in.
Absolutely.
So thank you all so much for the time tonight. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you to Community Paradigm for putting me forward as a finalist. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Mark Strange. I've been the town administrator for the town of Ludlow for the past 3+ years or so. Over those past 3 years, we've really worked hard to implement better practices and also maximize taxpayer return on investment and quality of life. That's really why I do this work. I'm a helper by nature, which is why I was drawn to this type of work, and I've fallen in love with the profession. So just a few examples of you know, what we've done in Ludlow. There's many, but you know, one of the first things we did was we brought in DLS to do a financial management review, and I know you all have been talking about that. And I think you're right on target with that, because they're a great group, first of all, but they went through all of our departments, interviewed all the department heads and staff, and sort of, you know, helped us come up with a roadmap for how we can make the town more efficient. And one of those recommendations was combining our treasurer and our collector. So our treasurer was elected, and so was our collector. And it just so happened that our collector retired, which gave us the opportunity to combine the treasurer collector office. We had the ask town meeting for approval. They approved that. It went to the ballot, and the voters approved it as well. That ended up saving us about $100,000 in our budget, which was really great. And just one other thing I wanted to point out in terms of communication, I really think communication across the board is extremely important. You know, we put together a monthly call with the board, the select board, the finance committee, and also the school committee chairs. I attend, the town accountant attends, as does the school superintendent and the school business manager. So it's been a great way to just stay in contact with each other. You know, particularly this past, you know, budget cycle was really challenging, you know, at least for us. We had a huge health insurance premium increase, which really threw our budget off. So it was really important to sort of stay in contact. And there's other examples, but yeah, so I'm really proud of what we did over the past 3 years. It's been exhilarating. It's been you know, the thrill of my professional life. I am a town administrator, so you know, the reason that I'm sort of looking elsewhere is I want to be a town manager. I'm looking for sort of that next step and that next challenge. And I would love to be, obviously, your town manager. A few of the reasons that I was drawn to Auburn. One is the town government is structurally sound. I really like how you have a finance department, but also the Department of Development and Inspection Services was a really great way, I think, to make the town, you know, the town more efficient. But even little things like the agendas, the select board agendas are really professionally done. They're communicative. They're very organized, and the way the board meetings are run are really impressive. And that's, you know, again, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a strong board. This is a strong board. I know everybody brings a little something different to the table, you know, but I feel like the board really truly cares about the town. And then the management team. I mean, we met with the management team yesterday, and you know, again, I was super impressed with everyone. I've watched a lot of meetings. I've watched a lot of your meetings. You know, the Board of Health, Planning Board. I've, you know, just to try to prepare myself. And the staff is extraordinarily professional, knowledgeable, and I would really love a chance to get to work with them. But lastly, you know, another thing that drew me to Auburn is that there's so many economic development opportunities and activities. That's one of the reasons that I was drawn to Ludlow. So Ludlow has a huge mill campus, you know, former mill buildings that are slowly being redeveloped. And it's really the heartbeat of the town. It's right down in our town center. You know, so with that economic development, you know, coming through, that's really the future of the town. We're going to hopefully be able to do, you know, a lot of different things with that additional commercial revenue. And I know, you know, again, I've been to Drury Square now, you know, a bunch of times, and checked out the aesthetic improvements in Goddard Park. It's really, you know, when you come down, I guess that's South Ridge Street, right? The football field there is really, really cool. You have a sense that you're entering someplace. And I reviewed sort of the conceptual plan for the development of that area with the walking paths and things of that nature. The pond, I think there's a lot of potential there. I know a lot of that potential has already been met, but I would love to be, you know, a part of that and whatever else in terms of economic developments coming down the pike. Related to that, I was the Director of Planning and Development for the town of Agawam for 7 years before I joined Ludlow. Obviously, we supported the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission. We were involved in the community development projects and obviously economic development initiatives. I'm happy to get into that further if you'd like. And then also, so the last 3 years of that 7 years, I was on the Select Board in Longmeadow, which is where I live. So I feel like I bring a diverse set of experiences to the position as a select board member. I've sat in chairs that you're all sitting in. I've been on department head and I've been a town administrator. And then just a few other things about me. I am an attorney licensed to practice here in Massachusetts and the state of New York. Obviously, I don't have time to do that anymore, and I certainly don't have the expertise. But I am licensed nevertheless. And I'm one of, I think, 30 now current managers who are credentialed by the ICMA, which is something that I'm really proud of. And on the personal level, my wife and I have been together for 26 years. We have a son, Sam, who's 16, who plays basketball year round. We have a daughter, Sophia, who's 12, going on 19. We have 2 dogs, and we have a strong home life. So when I'm not working or thinking about work, we're usually hanging out, going to games or doing projects around the house. So it's a little bit about me. I know you guys have questions, so I'm happy to answer them.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague on the end to start the questions.
Well, welcome. It was a great intro. I think you've answered 12 of the 11 questions. So we'll breeze right through. What draws you to the town manager position in Auburn? And how does your professional background, leadership style, and personal values align with our community's goals and challenges? And I can repeat any or all of that, so don't feel like you have to be a savant.
Well, I'll do my best to get through it. And if I miss something, please obviously feel free to follow up. In addition to the reasons that I've already described, I think the transition from Ludlow to Auburn is a relatively seamless one. So we tried to do a charter change or creating a charter in Ludlow. Ludlow does not currently have a charter, so we put together a charter. And in that process, I did some research on other towns who've gone through the process. And it occurred to me that the Auburn structure of government was a lot like Ludlow is now, before the 2009 charter change. So Ludlow is still largely decentralized. There's a lot of elected boards and officials, which makes it really inefficient. I think the taxpayer dollars can go further in Ludlow if it was a little bit more centralized. So that was certainly a draw to me. We also have representative town meeting, and I think you still do weekly payroll? So do we, and I didn't know any other town just does weekly payroll. So we're working on that. You may be too. So that was one thing. Our budgets are very similar. So we just had town meeting on Monday night, and our overall budget was 87 million. That's operating fund and enterprise funds, and I think Auburn's right around 86 million or so. It was just there were some things that were uncanny about it. In addition to the town manager position, your finances are outstanding. I mean, the fact that you have 19 or 20 million dollars in free cash is outstanding. It's unbelievable. So it really made me jealous. And then it seems like every trust or reserve fund is really healthy, which it gives the town options when you need it. It also points to really responsible and healthy and conservative budgeting practices.
So how would you handle a situation where your professional opinion differs from that of the governing body? And can you provide an example of how you've navigated similar dynamics in the past?
That's a good question. So, I really value the hierarchy, right? So I work, the town manager works for you all. The town manager has a little bit more authority than the town administrator, but we all still work together, and I work for you. So, I've been fortunate enough to have a close enough relationship with the board members in Ludlow that I can be honest with them. Some aren't as sort of engaged or communicative as others. We have a couple who are very talk to me all the time, and they have great ideas. And you just kind of have to get a feel for how what kind of communication people respond to. And I feel like I'm pretty good at that. This is my job. This is what I do all the time. I think about this. I watch other meetings. I read. This is what I do. This is what I love to do. In fact, I used to be and I still am a big sports fan, but I used to spend all my time watching sports, playing sports, and now I find myself on YouTube watching meetings. So, I don't have any issues with telling you what I think the best practice might be in terms of there's always like a political element I think to decisions, what I think the political impact might be. Ultimately it's your decision. I can only sort of provide guidance and it's really up to you. Yep.
Thank you for being here. How have you successfully fostered commercial growth or expanding the tax base in previous roles, and how would you balance economic development with preserving Auburn's character and quality of life?
Another great question. So I think I'll start with the second part first. I haven't been able to tour the whole town. Like I said, I've been here a handful of times already. I've been to Pappas. I've certainly been up and down the commercial corridors. And it seems like there's a bit of a separation between the residential areas and the commercial areas. With so much commercial in town, I think we would want to keep the commercial as far away from sort of the neighborhoods as possible as we can. And I think with the corridors again and the Drury Square and others, I think that's possible. Obviously, you would know that much better than I would. But I think it's a good separation if you have residential neighborhoods, and then they can visit the commercial areas. In terms of commercial growth, it's one of those things that's kind of it's kind of hard to describe or quantify how you bring businesses in. There are tools. So we've used TIFs, excuse me. So when we were in Agawam, we had a very big taxpayer who was looking to build a new facility elsewhere. So we offered them a pretty aggressive TIF, and that allowed them to stay. TIFs are very valuable if you can hear about it early enough on and have that conversation with that business, or if there's a business that wants to come into town. In Ludlow and Agawam, we've created DIF districts. So a DIF district is you really need an area that is poised for a lot of commercial growth. And what happens is if you don't know, the assessor will define all the parcels that are in the district. Drury Square seems like a pretty good candidate for it. You define all the parcels in the area, and you establish a baseline valuation of all those parcels, and then any additional growth or tax revenue associated with the growth stays in the district, whereas ordinarily it would go into the general fund. That's one way in Agawam and in Ludlow, the infrastructure is everything, particularly if you're going to have a lot of development. You need to expand the pipes. A lot of the pipes are older and smaller, but also above grade, things that are going to beautify the area, raised crosswalks, colored crosswalks, banners. I saw there's some banners down in Drury Square, things that are visually appealing that really, gives you a sense that you've arrived someplace. I also saw that the town worked with Mark Favorman to do new signage, which I think it did a great job. So I think signage is everything. It's the little things that really make a town welcoming. And I think that's really part of it. You want to make your town attractive to businesses. Right? So if a business is in a neighboring community, and they're just happen to be driving through town, and they see there's so much commercial activity, and the town cares about economic development.
Thank you. Auburn residents value a vibrant local economy. Can you share specific examples of how you've supported small business growth, entrepreneurial development, or revitalization of commercial areas in ways that reflected community priorities?
So the first thing that comes to my mind, and excuse me, is that we're doing a marketing campaign right now in Ludlow. Ludlow is a surrounding community to the MGM Casino. So we got a competitive mitigation fund grant. So we're working with John Guilfoyle PR. And so they're doing a dynamite job they created the tagline and a new logo for us, and a website. So, I've always thought, even when I was in Agawam, there's no repository for businesses. I think you guys do a pretty good job, if I'm remembering correctly, of, having a directory of businesses in town, which I think is so important. I think there's also a map of economic development, which is outstanding. But there's no repository, so if somebody is looking, they have to do a Google search, and it's not focused. So our Get Lost in Ludlow campaign, we have a website that lists all the businesses that want to participate, and a little description with icons where they can click on it and then go to that business's website. We also have a calendar of community events. So along with the listing of the businesses, there's a full calendar with events that are going on at the library, at the Little League, whatever's going on, which I think is really, really important, certainly for small businesses, but for the whole community, so that they know that there's a place that they can go to find out everything that's going on in Ludlow. And I hope that's helping our small businesses, drive some traffic to our small businesses.
Thank you for being here. Could you describe a time when you addressed a challenging concern from a resident? What strategies did you use to build trust, resolve the issue, and ensure appropriate follow-up from your staff?
This happens all the time, right? I pride myself on being, of all the things that I do, my favorite thing to do is helping a customer, so to speak. Even when I was in Agawam, if I got picked up a call in the planning department and I knew it wasn't a planning question, I would make sure that I shepherded that question to the proper department and made sure that I got back to that resident, because that's what we do. We serve the public. I'm sure there's frequent flyers here in Auburn as well. Once they ask questions, and once you sort of listen, and you give them a forum and you help them, they keep on coming back. So, and there's a bunch of people who will reach out to me for help. I just had somebody, I'm just thinking about it yesterday, had reached out to our DPW, who is short-staffed, about paving schedule, because they were supposed to be paving his road. So he reached out to me to see if I could help him out. So I coordinated with our DPW director and got him his answer. We've had people come in, neighborly disputes are always like one of the most intense ones. So we had a gentleman come in who was clearly escalated. And I was in my office, and he was speaking with the assistant in my office, and I could hear him escalating. And my assistant is fabulous, and she's salt of the earth, and she's the kindest person you'll ever meet. So I went out there and just sort of injected myself, and people just want to get it off their chest, right? And particularly with neighborly disputes, that because it's so constant, there's such a constant sort of irritation there. So I was able to talk to him about it and really explain that there's really nothing that we could do about his problem. He obviously didn't like that, but he left he left at least, satisfied that we were able to have that conversation. So,
Thank you.
Not going to miss it this time. How will you communicate and engage with residents and the business community when important events affect short and/or long-term community goals and opportunities?
So, I think generally speaking, you're asking about external communications with residents and the business community. So I can let you know what we've done in Ludlow and sort of, what my ideas could be in Auburn. One of them was our website. So it's funny because we have similar websites, Ludlow and Auburn, and we're getting the same complaints that Auburn is getting in Ludlow. So we're actually updating our website again. But the positive that was we get a bunch of notifications from residents, potholes, whatever it is, we get we're able to communicate with the public in that way. I do a monthly tea with the town administrator at the senior center, which is really, really well received. It's great to go over there once a month and meet with those folks. They always have something that, that we need to work on and come back to them with. We have a PR firm. It's not as big as kind of that sounds, but we send out press releases whenever possible. And we do robocalls. So, we've really found robocalls to be the one method that really reaches everyone. The chiefs get a little nervous because you don't want to overuse the reverse 911. But we send out robocalls to remind people when taxes are due. If we really, or like for the charter committee that we put together, we sent out a robocall and that was really successful. I'm trying to think. So, that's mostly what we do now. I would love to do like a quarterly, town manager on the town picking, either a public venue or a business, inviting the public to have some in-person interaction, ask questions. We can provide an update as to, what's going on. Doing snippets on ACTV. There's all kinds of things that we can do that I really want to do in Agawam. I just haven't had it, or in Ludlow, I just haven't had a chance to do it. I think it's extremely important. I don't think towns prioritize communication enough. It's one of those things that very few communities have like a dedicated communications person, but it's everything. It's everything. People, obviously people like us, we know what's going on, and there's probably a handful of residents who follow along quite a bit. Most of the town isn't really paying attention until it impacts them. So I really think I would love to put together like a communications program strategy that's multimodal and just does the best we can to communicate with residents and the business community.
Thank you.
We're going to switch over to sort of a leadership and team balance focus with this question. How do you navigate the sometimes competing demands between serving the public and supporting municipal staff? Can you share an example that demonstrates your ability to lead with fairness, transparency, and balance?
That's a great question. So we, as I mentioned, we combined our treasurer collector position. Unfortunately, shortly thereafter, the treasurer collector retired. She was a long-term, she was long tenured, excuse me. And we've really had a tough time filling that role. I know there's treasurer collector positions there's a lot of towns looking for them, and we still are. And Ludlow is a town that there's a heavy Portuguese population and a Polish community, and they just love to pay in cash. So, during times, certainly when property taxes are due, the lines are out the door. They're not always sort of patient with our staff. So that's really been a source of sort of an issue for me to try to navigate. particularly when we don't really have a department head to step up for the staff. So we've been trying to, do whatever we can to mitigate the amount of people coming in to pay their taxes, because that's really the biggest issue. So when we send out those robocalls, we really encourage people to pay online. And I think, we're trying to repeat that message to try to, again, to mitigate the amount of foot traffic. That's the main one that's coming to my head right now. One of the collector staff members is looking for more Munis training, so we're going to get her trained up in Munis. It's a tough balance because I think each situation is different as well. The staff is everything, and I told the management team yesterday that their sort of job satisfaction and their morale and their performance is everything to the town manager. Without them, this job is incredibly difficult. And I feel the same way about our staff as well. I certainly do whatever I can to support them. A specific example to your question, Mr. Crane, is escaping me, but just a few things in terms of employee morale. We did a couple of employee wellness days, which I'm proud of. So we had motivational speakers come in. We had financial wellness speakers come in. We had therapy dogs. We had masseuses. We played like ice, kind of those silly ice breaking games to get to know each other. Those were very well received. And I think, that's important to let the staff know that you care about them. So I know not a totally direct answer to your question, but thanks.
How have you supported the professional growth and development of your staff? What management styles or techniques have you found most effective in building strong, motivated team?
We're always looking to promote from within. We've promoted so many people from within, and this might be a Western Mass issue in terms of finding people to come and do municipal work. I'm assuming, Auburn has its own issues as well, but there's no population center. I mean, we have Springfield, but it's not nearly, what the Worcester area is. So we're always trying to, do whatever we can to promote from within. So we look at intangibles, work ethic, integrity, commitment to public service. So just a couple of examples. We had one of the staff members in our treasurer collector's office. She's outstanding. She was a physical therapist for 20 years. She has all those intangibles. Outstanding. I can't say enough about her. So we actually elevated her to the interim treasurer collector because we thought she could handle it, and she could handle it. It was just a little bit, there were a little bit too many hurdles. So she since sort of dropped back to where she was. But I told her, we're not losing you. If this isn't the spot, we'll find another spot for you because she's too valuable. Our town accountant is relatively new. She asked to become a certified procurement officer. We paid for that. I would say depending on budgetary limitations, any employee that wants to improve themselves, of course, again, they're so important, and the people that really are engaged and committed and want to make themselves better, we provide whatever growth opportunities that we can for them.
Thank you.
Thank you. If selected, how do you envision integrating yourself into the Auburn community as both a leader and a neighbor? What role does community presence play in your leadership philosophy?
Again, I think it's extremely important. It was something that I've been trying to do in Ludlow a little bit more. Again, we've had some staff turnover, so I've had to direct my energies more on the front lines of the departments. I would love the opportunity to be more in the community, certainly attending, regularly attending Chamber of Commerce meetings, meeting with business owners, like doing the quarterly, town manager on the town type of thing. I think, again, I think it's just extremely important that, the town has, can identify with somebody who, they know that if there's an issue or they have a question that they can come to in town hall. I don't, there's certainly, a population in Ludlow and maybe in Auburn too that are distrustful of government. And, for somebody who deeply believes in good government, that's, it's certain, hurtful to me. But, I want to be that person that can reinforce and instill the trust back in those and whoever has sort of, lost their faith. But yeah, I mean, again, there's so many things that we can do to be in the community. It'll help ones to sort of have an idea of like who the stakeholders are and who I really should be meeting with. My plan would be to sort of have a spreadsheet of all these people, and maybe even do something like similar to the Auburn account. I think that's a newsletter. And, with that sort of a business and economic development focus. Just another way to connect them to town hall.
Thank you. Please tell us about a professional challenge or situation that you faced for the first time, one that required you to step outside your comfort zone. How did you educate yourself, build a response plan, and involve your team or stakeholders in resolving the?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think my answer is going to fully answer your question, but the one thing that jumps out at me is leadership. One thing I found being now, a leader, certainly of departments and of the town is, first of all, it's a very lonely job, right? So networking with fellow administrators and managers is very important, but they don't teach you how to be a leader. Right, you can have innate leadership qualities, which I think I have some, but there's a technique to it and a practice that's required. So I've taken a few leadership courses at this point. It's always a work in progress for me. I feel like that's sort of the next frontier in terms of a professional challenge for me. Is I feel like I have certain subject matter expertise, but I want to be an expert at being a leader. Somebody that people trust and will listen to and follow into the future. So that's something I will always work on.
Thank you.
Last question.
Oh,
Planned.
last question.
Last planned.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
sorry.
Last formal question. I hope you have a sleeping bag. Good job. Do you have experience overseeing a municipal golf course or similar recreational facility? If so, how have you approached budgeting, operations, programming, and community involvement in such facilities?
We do have a municipal golf course. It's 18 holes. It's extremely popular. It's an enterprise fund. So, we don't have, too much control over the management of it. Certainly, I'm very friendly with the superintendent, who is outstanding. The course is in amazing shape. And they do a good job. They bring in probably $1 million, or they have probably about $1 million in revenue every year. So they're able to pay for capital projects out of their retained earnings. There's a golf commission that oversees the employees, and it's made up of our recreation commission, which is 3 elected officials, and then 4 appointees from the select board. I think one year, certainly before I started, they were in the red, so they had to come to the town for some help. In recent years, they've been, between the shape of the course, the loyal golfers. There's the clubhouse and the restaurant is very popular. We really haven't had many problems with them. In fact, a lot of the selectmen and town employees go up there and golf. Our local county sheriff is from Ludlow, so he has a tournament up there quite a bit. So, I can't really say that we've had to do much in the way of managing them, because they've sort of taken care of it themselves.
So now I'm going to open up the board to follow-up questions.
I mean, great answers. Thank you for all of the information you provided. If you've watched our meetings, it's probably no surprise that I have questions. So I guess I'll start with knock on wood, provided the voters agree, on Tuesday, we will be constructing a brand-new fire station. Can you provide any experience that you've had overseeing a large, from your various experience overseeing a large project such as construction of a fire station, OPMs, or, not necessarily fire station, but any large infrastructure by a municipality, experience with OPMs, moving the project forward, making sure it stays on budget and on time, et cetera?
Yeah, not that large, but yes. So our biggest ARPA project was a new high school sports complex. Excuse me. Put in a new turf field, a new track, new baseball field, scoreboards, things of that nature. It's a really gorgeous facility now. But we obviously hired an OPM, and the way we handled it, I don't think is anything out of the ordinary. We had weekly meetings, weekly update meetings with the contractor, the OPM, myself, and our procurement officer, just to make sure that we were staying on track and staying within budget. We actually came in under budget, which I was thrilled about. We also, right now, we're rehabbing our library. So we have an OPM on that project. And it's kind of the same thing. We get, regular updates from the OPM, and the contractor, and our library director has done a great job of managing. So it's a team effort. It's not reinventing the wheel, I don't think. It's just a matter of diligence and sort of, having instincts on when, the town manager, the town administrator, as that authority figure, needs to sort of, chime in and support, the department head or the OPM, however it is. We've been lucky. We've been really lucky. This is our third project, and they've all come in under budget, slightly under budget, but certainly under budget. But yeah, I mean, I would look forward to, being involved in the fire station project to the extent that I can be or that I need to be. I think that's another part of it, is trying to get a feel for how involved I need to be, how involved sort of the fire chief, wants me to be. But yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that.
Could you talk about your experience with applying for and receiving grant funds, and maybe if there's one you're most proud of, why you're most proud of it, and what you were able to achieve?
That's actually an easy one for me. Thank God. Okay, so we've been really fortunate with grants. So in 3 years in Ludlow, we've secured over $6 million in grants. That's a MassWorks grant, a CDBG competitive grant. We got a park grant, which is a parkland acquisition. I'm gonna mess it up, but it's a very competitive grant. So we were really proud to get that grant. MVP, we were the lead community on a regional energy manager position that's funded by EEA. We've just been really fortunate. I think it's not really, we're not really splitting the atom here. You have to have good projects. You have to have good consultants who know how to submit good applications. And we've been really successful.
Yes, so I'm going to try and ask it exactly the same way. So throughout my years on the board, I have heard consistently complaints from residents that the town manager hasn't lived in town. So what is your philosophy about living and working in the community?
I will tell you that I will never work in the town I live in. It's just too fraught, so, as a town manager, everything you say and do is under a microscope. So, we have family that lives in town, we have neighbors. Inevitably, they're going to ask you about this or that, and you really can't answer it, right? You can't, because the minute you answer it in any way, it's around town. So, I mean, I love my town, but I would never work there. And I think it's valuable to have people who don't live in town. They come with different perspectives. Certainly, if you've worked in different towns, I think that's invaluable. So, I do feel pretty strongly about that, at least for myself. I wouldn't recommend it to any manager who was thinking about it. I think it's just fraud. I think you're setting yourself up for burnout.
Thank you.
Are there any, please?
I may, Madam Chair, I'm not going to be able to ask this the same way because I don't remember exactly how I asked it previously, but you gave a lot of given information with regards to economic development, and I was wondering if you could dig in deeper. It sounds like you've obviously clearly done your research on Auburn and our different plans that we have put forward, and Auburn being strategically positioned where we are has a lot of growth potential that has not been realized. Can you speak to the experience you have and how it would translate to Auburn with respect to working with not just the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, but the Greater Worcester Chamber of Commerce, identifying opportunities for bringing in new businesses, new industries, and what the town would have to do to position ourselves for that economic growth?
Yeah, no, thank you for asking that question because, that's part of the job that I really love. There's sort of a broader regional and state networking piece of it. So certainly in Western Mass, I have a very strong network, both of, so the company or the nonprofit that owns our Ludlow Mills, him and I are very good friends. And, they have properties in Springfield and Chicopee and in Ludlow. I'm also very friendly with the gentleman who runs the Economic Development Council in Springfield. And, those are probably be lifelong friends of mine. They don't necessarily have, an impact in Worcester, but this is new territory. So I would love to, sort of establish, a network similar to that. Here in Central Mass. That's one of the reasons it's so exciting. That really motivates me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, what are your long-term goals and where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I want to be right here in 10 years. I'm going to be 50 years old this year. This whole process is very time consuming. It can be, unsettling for the people that are in Ludlow, and I'm sensitive to that. It takes a lot of time. I mean, 25 hours, 30 hours of watching, meetings, researching on all of you and the staff. It's a big thing. And so I would love to, be here, be the town manager for the next 20 years if I could. So, that's whether it's Auburn or whatever the next job is, I'm not looking to bounce around.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we tried to do the best we could with the questions we asked, but is there anything that the community should know about you or anything you'd like to share that we haven't asked?
I can juggle.
That could be very important.
Yeah. No, I really, I'm a pretty honest person and transparent. I'm really excited about this job. I want this job. I want to be your town manager. And I would love to get to know the community better.
Are there any additional questions? Thank you so much for spending time and letting us get to know a little bit about you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I ask for a 10-minute break.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn for 10 minutes.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well. It is 8:26 and we are going to resume with our interview for our final candidate, Dory Vecchio. Could you please take about 5 minutes, give us some information about yourselves? We have 10 questions prepared for you and then possibly follow-up questions. Thank you.
Perfect. So what John just handed out was just some of my thoughts for the town of Auburn, just in case I'm not able to remember everything tonight. There's a lot. So for those of you that don't know me, most likely in the public, my name is Dory Vecchio. I'm the interim town manager for the town of Auburn. I want to give you a brief background about my history, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. But I think it's important. I did work for the city of Worcester for 23 years. I started in the Parks Department back in the 1990s, and that's where I really learned about operational municipal government when you work in like parks or DPW. It was a great experience. From there, I went and worked with a city manager, then Michael O'Brien, where I learned the most about municipal government. And to be honest, it is the job that has been most helpful for me to pursue the career of town manager. So in that role, I did work with 12 city councilors, cabinet members, department heads, all on behalf of the city manager. I did that for about 4 years. I participated in meetings associated with the City Square project, and if you're not familiar with that, that is when they took down the Galleria and they developed a multi-use development, which was public and private. It includes market rate housing, restaurants, it includes retail, and it's just a beautiful area now. So I was grateful to be involved in that process. That's just one of them that I wanted to mention. After that, I went on to be the finance director of the redevelopment authority and the grants manager. In that role, I managed millions of dollars in grants. I worked with the WRA to continue development in the city. And I was also the point person for the audit for the Worcester Regional Airport prior to when Massport took it over. So I was the one that was handling the city side of the documentation, which was a pretty long, I'm not going to say fun, but detailed process. I also assisted in developing a $700 million budget. At the time, it was about $700 million. I was there for about 3 years when the city manager asked me to go back. There was a vacancy in his office, so he asked me to come back. At the end of that short period, you'll see that on my resume, I moved on to human resources. And in that role, which was, I was in that position for 10 years, I negotiated with multiple unions. I attended arbitrations, JLMC proceedings, HRD hearings, civil service hearings. I prepared a $1.3 million operating budget. I oversaw the workers' comp and IOD for the whole city. I implemented our first ever assessment center for the police department. That was several years ago, and now they do it as a matter of practice. I managed investigations and employee benefits, and I made the very difficult decisions to terminate employees when necessary. In June of 2021, without a break-in service, I became the town administrator for the town of Blackstone. This was when I truly learned that municipal management was my calling. I knew I loved it, I just didn't know how much until I started working for Blackstone. I managed the day-to-day operations in Blackstone. I implemented policies so the town was in compliance with 30B. I entered into the first time ever shared fire chief agreement with the town of Mendon to help to develop our fire department staff so that one of our officials could become fire captain. And since I left, he has been. So it's a huge success story for me. I managed a $241,000 technology upgrade to ensure that resident documentation and information was safe and secure. I went out to bid for capital projects, and I received my MCPPO. I developed their first ever 5-year capital plan, and I also developed their first ever roadway maintenance plan. Truth be told, I always wanted to work for Auburn. I never thought it would happen because I knew succession planning in the town of Auburn was very good. I didn't think that I would have the opportunity because my background wasn't 100% as a chief financial officer as Ed was. So I was shocked and excited when I found out that you were looking for an assistant town manager with an HR background. I started in March of 2023, and in my 2 years in the position, I participated in the operating and capital budget meetings, managed HR investigations, worked with the town manager on all operational issues in the town, and also served as acting head librarian for the last 3 months in the assistant town manager position. As acting librarian, I learned why people love libraries. I love the library now. I worked with library staff to develop programs, to train them, to motivate them, to build up their materials and their periodicals and their book sections. And together we worked as a team to develop a very professional, happy environment. And I developed a very good and strong relationship to the Board of Trustees, the friends of the library, and the staff. Last but not least, I stepped in as interim town manager in February of this year. I'm truly grateful and honored to be trusted with such a large responsibility from you. I hope I have met your expectations, even though it has been a short 3.5 months. That's my opening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we have some questions. I'm going to start with Mr. Carpenter.
Yeah, so again, you probably answered all 11 predetermined questions in your opening. So, and as for a short 3.5 months, it seems like a very long 3.5 months to me,
I don't
but
know if that's good.
more of an observation than a judgment. What draws you to the town manager position in Auburn? And really, I would say you should probably lean in on the back half of this because you kind of answered that. And how does your professional background, leadership style, and personal values align with our community's goals and challenges?
Okay.
And I can repeat any and all of that, so don't think that you have to.
So what draws me is I like working with people. That's why I love the library so much. I love the town manager position, the 2 months I've been there, 3.5 months, 2 months, 5, 6, whatever it is, because I deal a lot with residents and I deal a lot with their concerns, and they may have called multiple times, and I'm able to work with department heads, which I can't commend the staff here in Auburn enough because they're part of the reason why I want this job so much. But my draw is to help people, much like I'm sure yours is. My professional background that has brought me into this, I think I explained quite a bit. I've got almost 30 years of municipal experience. My leadership style and how it aligns with the town, I think it aligns really well. I keep my door open, and the town manager's office and previous town managers, I'm sure, understand that sometimes that's very difficult because people come in a lot. And I only had to shut it once because I had to get something done by a deadline, but people come in all the time. And I have an open door policy, whether it's a resident or an employee or, they can call me, but I don't mind having people stop by. I like it. Some of the times I've had phone calls. I've also gone out to roads and locations where people had complaints and then followed up with a phone call. So I really think my leadership style does align well with what the town of Auburn needs. I think the communication and the overall willingness to go above and beyond right now is warranted. They're paying at 2.5%. They know, I know how difficult that is for them, for some of them, and I want to just make sure they get what they need from me as a town manager.
Thank you.
How would you handle a situation where your professional opinion differs from that of the governing body? Can you provide an example of how you've navigated similar dynamics in the past?
I am not sure I've had a situation like this, and I listened to this question in other interviews in the past few weeks, and I was thinking about how I would answer it, and I didn't really come up with anything, so let me try this. I've never really had a situation where I didn't necessarily agree with the governing body. I think there's a lot, when things happen in municipalities and at our levels, and we have discussions, there are multiple opinions, and I respect people's opinions, and we don't always have to agree. And I am not the kind of person that is going to argue a point, especially in a public forum. I do agree people have their own positions. If it is in the best interest of the town of Auburn, I will try to explain that to whoever whether it's the Board of Selectmen or any other board or commission, my thoughts and my feelings on that, because I think that is our ultimate priority. And most of the boards and commissions, if not all, that I've met in Auburn, their objective is what is in the best interest of the town of Auburn. So I can't imagine that happening, but I think anything can happen.
How have you successfully fostered commercial growth or expanded the tax base in previous roles? How would you balance the economic development with preserving Auburn's character and quality of life?
That's a great question, and that's super important to me. In Blackstone, we had huge challenges because when you went down 146, you had to go through Rhode Island to get to Blackstone. It was next to impossible to get any type of development there. Right now, they're still struggling with the same situation. I did make multiple phone calls to one, we had a small grocery store in the middle of town that closed down for a variety of reasons, and I had a lot of conversation with them on what we could do to help, how we could bring in another grocery store, and they really just wanted to sell it to someone who's going to build housing. They wanted to sell it as a piece of land, and they wouldn't really work with me. There wasn't a lot of other opportunity for growth in Blackstone. In Worcester, I was involved in a lot of meetings associated with economic development, and as you can see from the downtown area, most of that I was involved in, at least on the meeting side, or working with economic development director and his staff. We were lucky to have a wide variety of staff that were able to help us. In Auburn, it would be one of my main priorities. I would, if hired, hire an assistant town manager with an economic development background, someone who can elevate economic development to a place where it needs to be right now in the town of Auburn. Why aren't we getting the businesses that we need? Why aren't we increasing the tax base? That is super important. We're between Route 20. We have every reason to want to be here. We have great schools. We have 290, 395, Mass Pike. There's no reason that they would not want to come here. So why are they not? Is it because we're not doing outreach? Is it because we're not developing relationships? That all needs to be determined, and we need to make some change in that area. That is a top priority of mine. I've been talking about it for several months now. I can do so much in economic development. You need a specialist. You need someone who has done this for years, who has built relationships, who's worked with businesses and worked with property owners. And we do have some very stubborn properties here in Auburn that I would love to do something with and make them safe, number one, but also develop them, especially because they're so close to the Mass Pike and in an area where we would want development. My other concern, and I've dealt a lot with this in working with residents for 40B, we need to maintain the integrity of our neighborhoods. So this business, the commercial business, should be in commercial business areas. That is where we need to put them, not necessarily in neighborhoods. It is so important to maintain the integrity of our neighborhoods. If you think about back when you're growing up, and that's how I think about it when I go into some of these 40B meetings and where I grew up, and there was never anything like a big complex at the end of the street with 190 units and people running, like they were neighborhoods just like what we have here. And it is so important that those children that are growing up, much like I did, are growing up in a similar environment. So I do know that's going to be a balance for us moving forward, but I'm very excited to work with you on that because I think we've learned a lot together on it, and I think it just makes us stronger as a town.
Thank you. Auburn residents value a vibrant local economy. Can you share specific examples of how you've supported small business growth, entrepreneurial development, or revitalization of commercial areas in ways that reflected community priorities?
So in Worcester, when I was working in the grants office, believe it or not, that's where it was, although I did manage some of it in the manager's office, A lot of the grant funding for revitalization for small businesses, not necessarily available to the town of Auburn. The city of Worcester is much different, but there were facade programs and programs that were offered to businesses to change the outlook, the way the outward facing part of their business. And those types of small things are super important. And going through Auburn, I can look at some areas and think that that might be a possible opportunity for us, whether we determine if we could use grant funds or if we look at it from a loan situation on the town of Auburn side to help businesses get what they need so that they can have a more vibrant, a more welcoming business area. So I've worked with also some of the agreements I was involved with the city manager's office. They're a little bit bigger than maybe something that would come here, but probably not. But we had TIF agreements. We developed the Business Improvement District. I mean, it's like an overlay, so I'm not sure that's something that Auburn would be interested in, but that basically allows the taxes in that area to go back to the town. That could be something that we look into if we have areas in town to do that. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for this type of thing, and I think in addition to myself and making it a priority along with the board, that an economic development director would be key for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please describe a time when you addressed a challenging concern from a resident? What strategies did you use to build trust, resolve the issue, and ensure appropriate follow-up by your team?
Sure. There's a particular challenging issue that we've been dealing with right now in the town manager's office, that we have a resident that is very upset about water in their basement. And it is very concerning. No one wants water in their basement. I have called our DPW. I've gone to the site several times myself. I've spoken to her on the phone. My staff has spoken to her on the phone. DPW has spoken to her on the phone. And I sent her a detailed letter outlining exactly what we did, what we saw, and what we found, and what the outcome was, so that she had something in writing that she could refer back to. Because one of the things I learned in the prior 2 years is, even though we have departments working on things, if you don't solidify it or just recognize it through a letter that says, this is your complaint, this is what we did, please let me know if you have any questions. Sometimes you're not necessarily giving them what they want, but you're at least letting them know that you heard them, and you give them a number to call you back if something else happens. And she does continue to call the office, and I will continue to work with her. I don't believe she's going to stop calling, and that's okay. That's her right, and that's my job. But with all that we have done, and all of the man hours we've put towards the issue to make sure that it was not a town issue and a town problem, I'm confident it is not, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to talk with her and work with her.
Thank you.
How would you communicate and engage with residents and the business community when important events affect short and/or long-term community goals and opportunities?
So I've developed a very good relationship with the businesses that are associated with the Chamber of Commerce, but there are a lot of businesses that aren't necessarily coming to our Chamber of Commerce meetings. And that is an area that I'm hoping to get more involved in. And it is so important for our businesses to be actively involved in the town. And I've worked with our current economic development coordinator on different ideas that we have that we could incorporate their business in. And we've been throwing around a few different things. We've had some obstacles, but I cannot stress enough the importance of maintaining a good relationship between the town and our businesses. They are the base of our tax base. They are our tax base. They are paying the most. They are a very integral part of this community, and it's important to maintain open communication with them, just like I would a resident who has water in her basement. I've been lucky enough to have 2 years here and be able to meet some of the great businesses already in Auburn. Sometimes I run into people in TJ Maxx, and if they sometimes recognize me because I was on the Yankee Express, which is great, but they'll say they have a business in town and they'll ask questions, or I'll go and get a shake and the woman who owns the shake place asks me questions. Those types of discussions are extremely important. And I think that it's vital to incorporate them into anything that we do in the community, whether it's a community event like we're hoping to have next year, we will have next year, in regard to the Robert Goddard Centennial. They've already been notified. They are part of our community just like any resident.
Thank you.
So moving to change shift to sort of a leadership and team balance focus. How do you navigate the sometimes competing demands between serving the public and supporting municipal staff? Can you share an example that demonstrates your ability to lead with fairness, transparency, and balance?
This is a really good question, and it's timely, actually. I am the kind of manager that I'm very honest. I'm very honest with everyone, which I guess could be good or bad. But there have been some situations where some of my staff haven't felt supported in the past few months. And I've had conversations with them, and I have conversations with others about that. And it's very important for me as a manager, and I will always support my staff. If they're right, I'm going to support my staff. I will do so with the ultimate of transparency. The people that I deal with regarding this will know 100% why I'm supporting my staff. But if my staff is not doing what they should be doing, it also works in reverse, that I will hold my staff accountable. I think it's important to make sure that they understand expectations. I'm a new manager. I may be different from the previous manager. They need to understand what my expectations are and what the board's expectations are. I think that being said, we have an amazing group of employees that work so hard, and their main goal is to make the town of Auburn residents' lives better. I can tell you that at 100%, and I would be honored to continue to work with them. But my leadership style is one of honesty, and if there are some issues that need to be addressed, that hopefully they can be addressed through education, professional development, and areas that can bring the employee up to the point where they need to be for the position they're in.
That leads right into the next question. How have you supported the professional growth and development of your staff? What management styles or techniques have you found most effective in building a strong, motivated team?
So this is very near and dear to my heart. It must be the HR part of me, and it started several years ago when I was in Worcester. I brought it to Blackstone, and I brought it to Auburn. I am very, I'm a mentor. I like to mentor people. I like to mentor women or men, but so far it's been 3 women. I've had 3 women in 3 different locations. One texted me yesterday that she is now the assistant HR director in the city of Worcester. And back in 2012, I had a conversation with her and said, unless a few things change, you're not going to be able to stay here. And from that time, she was voted for the Thomas Green Awards. She went for her master's degree while she had young children, and she's worked so hard for this, has gone through multiple positions, and now she's the assistant director. And she texted me to thank me because I was the one that gave her the motivation to move forward and to do the right thing. in Blackstone. I had something similar. She was already gone through some education, but she is now the assistant TA in Blackstone. And in Auburn, I have another young woman that I've tried to mentor as much as I can. But here, in any place that I work in, I want to provide our employees professional development. I want to give them, motivate them, and give them the opportunity to grow and give them the opportunity to actually look at other things. For instance, if someone's working for the town and they're not really happy in their position in one department, then it's okay to go to another department. It's okay to find something that you like better. We have some great employees that have done that since I've been here. I really think it's important that we stay open and honest because not everything is for everyone. Sometimes in my experience in municipal government, we tend to, and I'm not saying this is Auburn, but this is my experience, we tend to put people in positions that they're not necessarily trained for. And it's important for me to not let that happen in the town of Auburn. It happened in other towns I've worked for in the city of Worcester because they've been in the town for so long or the city so long. Oh, they're the next one in line. They need to be properly trained. They need to learn customer service at that level. They need to learn how to handle situations at that level, and they need to manage staff. So if we don't provide the training, there's no way for them to know. And we shouldn't be expected to, we shouldn't think we can hold them accountable when we put them in a position that we don't allow them the training to succeed. So that's a big concern for me, no matter where I am. And it's something I've seen throughout my years for the last 30 years, I've seen it quite often.
Thank you. If selected, how do you envision integrating yourself into the Auburn community as both a leader and a neighbor? What role does community presence play in your leadership philosophy?
This is super important, and I guess it's easy to say, but so one of the situations I was telling you about, and I went down to Rockland Road and I was looking at the road myself, we had a complaint and the woman was just wonderful. And I went down to see what she was talking about. And I know there's a new recycling center over there. So I went up there and she was having some problems with trucks and I called her back. That was so important to her. It was so important that I took 5 minutes out of my day. It was not difficult to go down and see what she was talking about. Could I have bothered the DPW director to run down? I could have. I could have gone through all that. And I did call the DPW after I looked at it myself. And we discussed options and what we can do for this woman. That is so important to keep that. You need to have that communication and see people where they're at. The other thing is events, 4th of July or Memorial Day, when we walk in the parade, people need to see us. And I remember when I worked in Worcester at one point, and I'm sure Mike O'Brien would admit to this, but he was in his office so much. I always used to say, people don't think you're real. They don't think you're real. They never get to talk to you. You've got to get out. And it's just so much, when you have so much work, you tend to stay there. But in reality, people want to see you. They want to see that you're active, that you're talking to people, that you're listening. So it's super important. So I anticipate that I will continue in enjoying in the events in Auburn. I'm hoping eventually to expand them based on, our financial constraints, which I'm assuming are going to be pretty extensive probably in the next couple of years. But maybe after that, I hope to expand some of them and be definitely involved in all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you tell us about a professional challenge or situation that you faced for the first time, one that required you to step outside your comfort zone? How did you educate yourself, build a response plan, and involve your team or stakeholders in resolving it?
I have several that I could talk about, but one that stands out immediately when you mention it is I was it was 2012, and I was the director of human resources for a week. And I was learning my job, learning the staff, and I had a woman come into my office to meet with me, which I enjoyed it there as much as I do here. I just like meeting with people and talking to them. And she said to me, Dory, I'm going through a transition, and I want to know what you're going to do about it, because I need to go. I want to have my bathroom. I want to have my rights, and I need to know what you're going to do. And I had never, ever had to address anything like that. And I looked at her and I was 100% honest. I said, I'm not sure. but we're going to work on this together. And she was great. We had a good conversation. I said, but I'm going to get back to you so that you know your next steps and what you need to do. And I called my team. I called the attorney. I called my team. I need to educate myself. What if there's a law? I don't know what you provide for someone who's transitioning. I don't know what you do with the people that you work with that are upset that someone's transitioning. Those are all the issues that were happening all at the same time, and I was there for a week. And I'm happy to say she still does outreach to me now. She's since retired. It was not always easy for her, but we did what we could by law and just humanity-wise to help her do the job to the best of her ability in the city of Worcester. But it was extremely challenging, and it was a position that I just didn't know what to do. And I did a lot of research, and I talked to people way smarter than me that had much more information on that subject than I did, so that I could make a positive difference in her life.
Thank you.
This is the last formal question. Do you have experience overseeing a municipal golf course or similar recreational facility? If so, how have you approached budgeting, operations, programming, and community involvement in such facilities?
So yes, when I worked in the city of Worcester, I was in the Parks Department for 6 years, and that included parks, recreation, cemetery, forestry, and the Green Hill Golf Course. So back in the 1990s, technology still wasn't that great in regards to like retail and trying to figure out taxes when you're dealing with money. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I dealt with Matt Moisen, who is still the golf pro there now, that I worked very well together, that we overcame a lot of obstacles. We went out to bid for the grounds. There's so many issues around golf courses that you don't know until you're involved in them. The aeration and the water and the golf carts and people breaking in, and like there's just a variety of issues that I can honestly say are fun. Like it's just golf courses are just, it's a recreation place. So one of the things that we made sure is that it was in the top condition at all times. We hired the best crew that we could to handle the grounds, and then we went out to bid and got someone to manage the food in the clubhouse after we actually built a brand new clubhouse while I was there. So they went out to bid, and they had someone come in that owned a restaurant in West Boylston, and they actually managed a restaurant right out of the golf course. I think since they have someone new, but there's a bar and a restaurant there that does very well. It's one of the best municipal golf courses around. It's not better than Auburn. I'm telling you right now, people come to Auburn instead. People very close to me prefer Auburn. But we also, when we were there, had talked about how to provide the best service. So we added something on the 9th hole so people get something to eat and drink and a bathroom. And since then, there's a driving range, and it's just taken off. It is an enterprise account, so it doesn't necessarily go to what our general fund needs, but it is a great addition to a town, and I think it's one of the reasons why we need to market Auburn more. We have an amazing golf course, and we also have land right next to the golf course that needs to be considered in the future. So I do have a lot of experience. It's unfortunate that I haven't had to really jump in here. It runs pretty well. I don't need to do too much, but it's run well by the DPW and by Katie. But it's a definite asset to the town of Auburn.
Thank you. I'm now going to open up follow-up questions to the board.
I'm sure it's no surprise that I have follow-up questions. With respect to, as you know, knock on wood, as long as the voters agree, on Tuesday, we will be constructing a brand-new fire station. Can you discuss any experience you had in Worcester or Blackstone or other communities with managing large capital projects, working with OPMs, working with project management, deadlines, keeping things on budget, on time, et cetera?
Yes, good question. So I have managed multiple construction projects. I'm not sure as big as this fire station, but I was working with Jill DeGillis at the time that she was working on the Volk School years ago. And the biggest, you know, it was such a big deal because she was on time and on budget. And those types of things typically don't happen in large capital projects in municipalities. I did manage a couple of capital projects in Blackstone where we went out to bid. And obviously, it's very important to get a good designer, and it's very important to get a good contractor and have open dialogue and conversations, because change orders can get out of control if they're not properly managed. And when I say properly managed, that means like on site. You need to, and I know you have, like, OPMs are great, and we have him here already in the town of Auburn, and they're going to give us all the information we need to make our decisions, but it does not hurt to go down and look at the site yourself. There are multiple times in Blackstone that I went down. We were building a water treatment facility, and we're also doing a construction project at Town Hall, that I went down and saw things, and I'm not, you know, that's not my area of expertise, but it's enough to ask questions on, like, why is that there, or why are you doing that? And in some cases, there was some things wrong. So it doesn't hurt to have eyes on it. But those types of projects are super important to have OPMs, good construction companies, good management companies, and actually a full commitment of the Board of Selectmen and administration, because it's really important that we're all on board with this, because this would be such an asset for the town of Auburn for years to come. And even though money is tight right now, it would be much more expensive 10 years from now, and I'm not sure that's a situation we want to be in.
Thank you.
No problem.
Can you discuss your involvement with grant funds, and maybe if there's any particular project that you're more proud of? Could you discuss your experience on that?
Yeah, I managed millions of dollars of grant funds in Worcester, but that's a little bit different. So those were like HUD grants and ESPA grants, and grants that the city of Worcester, they're qualified for because of their demographics. So that was one thing. But when I went to Blackstone, and what we need to do much more here, and I think I wrote that in my purple sheet, is start looking into grant funds much more than we are. In fact, I want to get grant funds to upgrade our website. We've talked about that. I've heard you talk about it multiple times. It is an area of contention for people. I was looking for something the other day, and I was getting irritated, so I can't imagine how someone who may not have the same familiarity to not be able to find something. So in Blackstone, I applied for two grants for, one was the 5-year capital plan, and one was for their pavement maintenance plan, which basically tracked or documented every single street in the town of Blackstone and measured what condition they were in, what they were made of. And that was something that was previously in the superintendent's mind. He knew it, but it was never documented. And it was just I was so worried about what would happen. If I stayed there, I would have done a lot more too, because there's so much that was in his mind. He's such a smart man. But if anything ever happened, it's just really not good for the town. So yeah, I have a lot of experience with grant funds. I think we should continue to go for them for anything we can get them for. I am very concerned, though, about the federal government right now, and the fact that I know we're waiting on a grant from Community Compact. We had applied for a grant for the library, and it's sort of on hold. And I think it's because there's uncertainty on the federal level. Even though it's not a federal pass-through state, I think the state is concerned, rightly so. So some of those things might be held up, and I'm pretty sure that's what's happening with this one.
So I'm going to ask this the exact same way. Some people don't, even though he scolds others for this. So throughout the years, I've heard multiple times complaints that the town manager does not live in town. What is your philosophy about living and working in the community you serve?
Well, I don't live in Auburn, as you know. I live in Worcester, and I had to live in Worcester because I was a cabinet member for years, and it was a requirement. It wasn't a big deal because I lived there anyway. I struggled, to be honest, living in Worcester and working in the city manager's office. There were many times that I couldn't go out to dinner, I couldn't go to, like it was not the person that just wants to talk to me, it was the irate, blaming, yelling, screaming because they're upset about something as I'm in a grocery store. Do I think that would necessarily happen in Auburn? Probably not, but it was extremely uncomfortable. And that is, I mean, my position, if you're asking me if I'm going to move to Auburn, is one thing, but my position about the topic is another. I don't think it should be required. I know it's something that the board would have to vote on. I did send a house by email yesterday home from Auburn and said, look at this. I'm not moving. I don't think I'd ever be able to get my spouse to move, but there is definitely, I wouldn't mind necessarily moving right now. But that's my philosophy on it. I don't think it should be required. I know that it's in the bylaw here, and I know the board would have to vote, so.
Well, if I can just mention, so I feel like we represent the townspeople, so we have to ask these questions. And I think it's important that the townspeople understand from your side of the table why it may not be desirable to live and work in the same town. And, you know, in looking at the backgrounds of all three of the candidates, there were in each of your backgrounds a situation where if I were faced with that, I don't know that I would be grateful that I was living in the town that I worked in, because there's a lot of emotion with it. There's also, you know, we did have one situation many years ago with a member of the Board of Selectmen whose daughter unfortunately became a target of people's displeasure with this individual. And, you know, that you should never target people's children, spouses, or employees in general. But, so that's why I asked the question, because I felt that I'm going to hear it again, and I'm happy to hear it. But I think it's important for the townspeople to understand from the applicants, from their side of the table, you've all worked in many different communities.
Right.
And you've obviously made that work in different ways. So I just wanted the public to have at least an idea of why it might not be ideal for the
Okay.
candidate.
Thank you.
So as Mr. Carpenter said, I'm not going to be able to remember exactly how I asked this question of the other candidates, but I will try to get as close as possible. So I want to lean into economic development a little bit more. Auburn has great growth potential given our location proximity to the highways, the city of Worcester. Can you talk about your experience or sort of how you would approach working with not just the Auburn Chamber of Commerce, but the Greater Worcester Chamber of Commerce, identifying potential new industries, new businesses, working with staff to identify them, communicate with them, bring them into the community, and just sort of lean into that a little bit.
That is a super important question. So I already have done outreach to Craig Blaze from WBDC in the city of Worcester. He has spearheaded economic development in the Worcester Business Development Corporation for years. And he hasn't gotten back to me yet. But also my relationships with some of the people in the city of Worcester, in the economic development department itself, along with some of the stakeholders in Worcester and some of the businesses in Worcester that I've had relationships over the years. I do know of some businesses that do want to come to Auburn. I know some of you do too. We've heard the same things. I think a concerted effort needs to be made. I have not been able to do it since I've been in this position for the short time that I have, but I see it and I see it every day. And I think I know that outreach to these individuals and dialogue and conversations and working with them on, these are the people that know everybody. They know the ones that want to be involved in investing in businesses and moving their businesses in different places. And I think that relationship needs to be established again. I do know Greg and I had touched base when I was in Blackstone, but I wasn't there long enough, but he is just such a great resource. So I would definitely touch base with all of the people that I know from Worcester. Even though working for Worcester is so different from Auburn, some of the things we do are exactly the same. And that is when it comes to economic development and developing relationships with realtors and with business owners, property owners. Those are key. And I think with their assistance and with an economic development director, we'll be able to get there.
So is there anything else that you'd like to share with the community, or anything you'd like to let everyone know that we didn't ask in our questioning?
I think the most important thing for you or for residents, and I think my employees, the people that work for me know, is this is me. I'm not any different tomorrow. I wasn't that much different yesterday. I have a goal of providing the best possible service to residents. That's what I love to do. It fulfills me. I'm not sure I'll ever be able to stop working. If I do, I'll have to find some sort of service industry. But the longer I'm working in government and the more I expand my knowledge base, like working at the library, the more I love it. Like, the service we provide is second to none. The roadways, the sewer, the libraries, the school system, like, we are so lucky to be involved in that. And it's not easy. It's not. But one of the things that Auburn has taught me that I think is really important is the ability to tie in the residents in helping make decisions. And in Worcester, we couldn't do that. It was just too big. We had 12 city councilors. In Blackstone, we did it to some extent. But if you look at even the 40B process that we did with Athens Street, it's a tough conversation. We had a meeting with all the residents. I've been in communication with them. And as much as this is going to be extremely difficult, we have an open dialogue. And they're not angry at us. We're not angry at them. We're trying to move together in the direction that we have to go. We don't want that development there, any more than they do, but they're the ones who are living it. So it's important that they know that we feel for them. We get it. And there's other ways that we can do development and housing that doesn't impact their neighborhoods. And I think that really needs to be stressed. And I do have a passion for this, and I think you guys have worked with me. There's a benefit over some of the other candidates is you guys have worked with me, and I'm passionate about this, and I love Auburn, and I love working with people, and even if it's tough or frustrating at times, the reward is 100-fold more. So I don't think I have that much else to add.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there, we are going to open up the floor to public comment. Please, just a reminder, this is a public meeting and these individuals, these candidates are professional staff. We would really love to hear your positive comments on who we should look at. There are 3 people signed up. If there are more people that would also like to sign up, we're welcome to that as well. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. So I will start with Mr. Largess. Could you please?
Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, I'll wait till the end.
Sure. I could then, next on the list is Mr. Toth, if you would like to come up. If you would like to be at the podium or if you prefer to sit, whatever is more comfortable for you.
I know that Mary DeCourcy will have a few words to say about her interactions with Dory through the Auburn Public Library. So I would just like to, and I think I can do this in less than 3 minutes, I just thought a lot about what it is about Dory that I thought was so powerful and important. And I have just a few things. Dory listens to people without making judgments ahead of time. That's a very important skill for people to have, and she's got it. She is data-driven. Opinions are great, but the facts rule. Dory communicates with clarity. She says what she means and acts accordingly. Dory is sensitive and empathic. She hears what you say and attempts to understand how you feel. For Dory, the past does not control the future. New ideas are welcomed and used. And finally, her commitment to this community, to the people of Auburn, has been expressed in many different ways, especially during the time she was filling in for a vacant position and more recently as interim town manager. I sincerely believe that the town of Auburn would be served well if Dory is selected as our next town manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. DeCoursey, I will allow you to speak next.
So a number of community members and employees who couldn't be here tonight because of the time change provided me with comments. So I'm just requesting of the select board, may I read their comments, which are probably, theirs are about 3 and mine's about 2.
It is fine with me. Do other members of the select board?
Absolutely, I'm fine with that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you so much. The first comments that I'd like to read are from Nan Johnson from the board, from our Board of Trustees. She writes, in the summer of 2024, interim town manager Dory had the added responsibility of working with the library staff and the Board of Trustees. Although she stated many times, in quotes, she knew nothing about libraries, she quickly became absorbed and enthusiastic about her new duty. Library staff welcomed her and gained confidence and independence under her management. She listened and allowed suggestions. With their help, she was able to ensure the library operated smoothly and efficiently. She began interviewing candidates for the library director in the fall. She was consistent in her approach with all the candidates. Again, her enthusiasm and knowledge of the library presented valid questions. At this critical time, she helped the library staff develop procedures that would support the new leadership. Consequently, a new library director was selected, Michael Geller. Goal completed. Dory was able to return to Town Hall. Her work at APL was much appreciated. That's Nan Johnson.
Thank you.
Library employee Molly Hulser, long-term library administrator Molly Hulser. I am willing to express my support of Dory Vecchio in her candidacy for the position of town manager. As a member of the library staff, I've had the privilege of working under Dory's leadership directly during her time as acting library director, as well as in the last few months as her in the role of interim town manager. I can say without hesitation that she is dedicated, compassionate, and a capable leader. During a particularly challenging time for the library staff, Dory was a steady, thoughtful presence who provided guidance and unwavering support. She helped us navigate uncertainty with professionalism and empathy, keeping both staff morale and community service at the forefront. Her ability to lead with strength and compassion made a lasting and positive impact. One of Dory's most significant contributions was helping select a new library director who has proven to be well aligned with the needs of both the staff and the Auburn community. This speaks to Dory's judgment, her ability to build strong teams, and her commitment to the long-term success of the town the town she serves. On a personal note, Dory has been incredibly supportive to me during a very difficult time throughout a medical issue I've been facing. Her encouragement, flexibility, and genuine concern for my well-being went above and beyond what I expected from a town administrator. That experience showed me how deeply she values the people she works with, not just as employees, but as individuals. Dory Vecchio is a person of integrity, vision, and heart. She leads with purpose and listens with care, and I have no doubt she would bring those values to the role of town manager. I believe Auburn would be fortunate to have her guiding our future, and I strongly and enthusiastically support her candidacy. Sincerely, Molly Hulser, Technology Administrator, Auburn Public Library. The next one is from another town library administrator, David Wood, who's out on paternity leave right now and very devoted to the library. He says, Dory is someone that in 3 months that I worked directly with her created a positive cooperative environment for a department that was in transition. As a leader, Dory took the time to listen to staff, learn about department needs, and offer suggestions to move the department forward. I'm sure I could say more, but I think these are the key points for me. Thank you, David Wood, Library Administrator. Next one is from a resident of the town who couldn't make it yet this evening, this late, John Dowd. He was a former Auburn employee. He has now works with me in Webster. I'm very happy to say he's a very professional man. He says, "Hi, my name is John Dowd, and I reside at 30 Westchester Drive in Auburn. I'd like to say that I think Dory would be the best choice for town manager. She has demonstrated in the time that she has been in her role, she can run a town efficiently and professionally. When I was paying a bill recently at Town Hall, I introduced myself to her. She listens to what I had to say very attentively." And then finally, my own thoughts. Thank you for allowing me the time to share from my colleagues and friends. My name is Mary DeCourcy. I represent tonight as a very engaged resident of the town, as well as the chair of the Library Board of Trustees. I thank you all as a select board for providing us with this opportunity to show support for the process of hiring our new permanent town manager. I thank you also for letting me read my letters of support. One Harvard University study asked participants which 2 qualities that are decided about a leader almost immediately. The findings were recognized in the first 5 seconds: competence and trustworthiness. Dory Vecchio also exudes warmth and astute skill at communicating with diverse population of stakeholders and a comprehensive understanding of human resource management, negotiation, and goal-centered supervision. As a direct result of her leadership, Dory has revitalized many departments in Auburn through her solid relationship building abilities. And to quote one of our newest library trustee members, Dory has brought a brand new day to the experience of both the Auburn Public Library as well as the experience of board members of the Auburn Public Library Board of Trustees. Dory filled 2 positions when the former library director resigned in September of 2024, and in 4 months, she oversaw the library, the hiring of a dynamic new director, Michael Zeller, who's in the House, and filled many necessary positions that were vacant for many years. Michael is a perfect fit, and I'm thankful to Dory and the hiring committee for that. I support the hiring of Dory Vecchio as our permanent town manager because she has demonstrated that she is a mobilizer of positive organizational growth. Select board members, I just ask that you make a definitive decision tonight and that we continue to experience this great growth trajectory under Dory's leadership. And I thank you kindly for your patience.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Largest?
Good evening, Board. I had spoke to you all individually earlier. I think all 3 candidates are good. It's going to be a hard decision for you. I just hope there is thorough facts researched for what the candidates have said tonight and double checking to make sure they're facts and not just made up out of thin air. And, there's just, it's a tough decision. It really is. And to be honest with you, I'm glad I'm not sitting up there. I really am. It's just, I know I want to see somebody in the chair that's going to be here for a long time, not 5 years to pad a retirement and then out the door. And I think somebody that will fit. I really wish that there was a lot more people at the meet and greet, because no matter what you do tonight, somebody's gonna complain. It's gonna happen. So, good luck, and I hope you take those things I had asked, fact-checking, backgrounds. Thank you, board. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that is in the audience that would like to make a comment? If you just give your name and your address.
My name's Michael Marshall. I live at 36 Appleton Road, member of the Finance Committee, town meeting member. Just want to say I've worked with Dory a little bit on the Finance Committee and in some other sort of areas around town. She is a very easy person to work with, very easy person to talk to. All three of the candidates seem qualified. They all, I had the opportunity to speak to each one of them for a short time earlier today, and they all seem like pleasant people, and I'm sure any one of them could do the job. I am always one of those people who thinks that the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, and Dory is not a devil, that's all I'll say. So again, we all trust your judgment and hope you make a great decision.
Thank you. I'm just going to open it up. Absolutely, please. Could you just give your name and your address?
Hi, Doreen Goodrich, 5 Lower Richard Drive. So you do have a difficult decision tonight. You've sat here and you've listened to 3 candidates. You've probably taken notes and maybe missed a little bit and, had a question in your mind. I assure you, if you go home tonight and you watch the replay of this meeting, one candidate will stand out in your mind, and that will be the best candidate for the town of Auburn. But I want to speak a little bit about the residency requirement. I know when I was on the board, I did waive it. Think about it. You're offering someone a 3-year contract. During that 3-year contract, the majority of the board could change twice. And you've asked someone to, uproot their lives, sell their house at who knows what market rate, go get a new mortgage at who knows what market rate, and possibly, like we've seen in other towns, try to buy their contract out after 2 years because they're just not the right fit. So I urge you to waive the residency requirement, and I urge you also to go home and watch this meeting, because I think you'll see that we have the perfect town manager right now.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any additional comments? Okay, seeing none, we have on the board the potential for a vote or to look at next steps. Would the board be interested in discussing or put forth a potential vote? I'm just looking for some guidance.
So before we move to that, I don't know if any of the tiles that I'm looking at have any questions or any comments, but there are 4 potential people who may want to comment.
So one of the tiles is our Board of Selectmen laptop. The other one is ACTV. It does look like there's an AI and someone who has declined to provide their name. If you would like to make a comment, could you just raise your hand, I guess, or react, and I can unmute you. We would just need your name and your address, and we'll willing to take your public comment. We're just going to give it a little bit more time. I'm not seeing anybody react so far.
It's a short delay, but if they really want to, they would have already said something. So
I'm happy to wait a little bit longer.
So I'm just going to say, with a week's notice of who the applicants are, having spent an hour with 2 people, and I think something that stood out to me most was what Mr. Strange said, of the amount of time that these candidates have invested in studying our town. So I think we owe it to them to continue to review their record. I'm certainly not an expert on Mr. Strange or Ms. Lopes Ellison. I've certainly done a fair amount of research, but there's way more to do in order to give them the courtesy that they've shown us by showing up, asking for a job, and committing, taking time away from their families, taking away time from, in some cases, work and more enjoyable activities. So I am not one who's going to say, yes, we should vote tonight on any of the three candidates. I think we owe it to the two candidates we don't know to research them and make a balanced judgment, because this is an $86 million decision we're making tonight. And it's also, as we've experienced, and all of us have shared at meetings, if you have the wrong person sitting in any seat, it doesn't matter where you fall in the organization. If somebody isn't living up to their side of the table, then everybody else suffers. And again, this is the first time since 2009 that we've had an open process. And I think we owe it to them that we give them the courtesy of review. And we also owe it to staff members and the residents to make sure when we vote that we're voting based on solid facts and that we're not just taking it off an hour of an interview, that somebody did great tonight, but 3 nights, if we interview them 3 more times, they may not be as great. And they all have wonderful backgrounds and certain, things that I'd love if I could squash them all together, and we'd probably have the perfect or as near perfect town manager as we have. Certainly, I agree. 2 of the candidates stick out in my mind for the thoroughness of their answers. So I definitely feel like they have spent a great deal of time, and we owe it to them to, and we owe it to the residents, business owners, and our staff to take due time before we just pick someone.
While I certainly understand where you're coming from, I believe I've spent quite a bit of time researching each one of these individuals and doing my due diligence. I believe I would be prepared to take a vote tonight if there are other board members that would like to take a vote tonight. I'm also more than willing to wait. I don't want to put it off so long. So if the will of the board is to wait for another night, can I ask that it be within the next week? Would another week give time if other board members aren't comfortable voting tonight?
So I will tell you, I'm leaving on a plane, and I have absolutely no ability to sit on my vacation and research this. I'm going to be traveling. I've made plans. I've made commitments. My schedule has been known to the board for months. And again, we've gotten these people a week ahead of time. So, and I've studied many communities, and this fiction that I keep hearing that, we can't wait because, they might not stay. Well, then they're not the right person for Auburn. Because honestly, in the position that I'm in, I wouldn't get the position with more than one interview. So this idea that somebody who's going to run a $90 million project should get one interview and, then we don't want them to have to wait. 2 of the candidates have had to wait for months to be selected for the top job. So I don't think they're sitting out there saying, if we have to wait 2 weeks, gosh, I'm going to go and just drop out. I just don't feel like that is a relevant, or even from a board member standpoint, I just don't think we should rush this decision. Having said that, I appreciate everybody's opinion, but, again, I'm not going to pay out $300,000 because we picked the wrong horse, or they decide that they don't want to listen to us and we got to pay out their contract. So I think we need to give this time and give board members time to do their research.
I certainly understand your concerns. Are there other board members?
You sure? No, go ahead.
I have plenty of opinions, but go ahead.
I have tons of opinions too, so why don't you go ahead?
Well, so I don't know how well my active listening skills are when I'm writing notes. So I would love time to at least review my notes, maybe rewatch this at least once, if not multiple times. Yes, I have done thorough research on the candidates. They also came in today and presented themselves very well. So again, any given night, they could be on or off. I just want to make sure that I'm giving it the thoroughness that we need to do. I know we all had discussions about individually about what we thought was best for the town or what we were looking for in ideal candidates. What I said may differ from everyone else, so I created my own little rubric to go through. I purposely did not want recency bias. I didn't want someone coming here to blow me away. I do have my own thoughts on what I think is more pressing for the town than maybe some of my other board members. So I'd like to at least give equal weight or weight what I went through tonight to make sure it's reflective of what the community needs and not just what I was thinking. Or I know our process kind of changed a little bit. We would have loved to have had the interviews yesterday and had town community members provide feedback and have that interview. It kind of got condensed. I'm not sure that there's many more people out there that have opinions, but I would love to at least have a day that if someone had something to say to us, that they had the ability. I know Mr. Corsi read a note from Mr. Dowd who said that one of the candidates was the best candidate, but they didn't even participate in tonight's interview process. So like, I don't want to, again, I value the feedback of the residents that were here, but they have experience that's one-sided or geared towards someone. And I think all candidates are qualified and they all presented well. I just want to make sure that we are thorough in giving that. So again, if the time requirement is we need to make a decision because all the candidates are dropping out, then they're probably not the best candidates for us.
So, Madam Chair, if I may.
Of course.
So I guess I agree and disagree with Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Chambers, in the sense that I agree fully that I'm not buying into the concern that we should have that if we don't act right away, 1 or 2 or 3 candidates are going to drop out and we'll have to go back through this process. I agree that if they're willing to drop out because we're making them wait a week or 2, then they're not the right fit for Auburn. However, I'm also not going to downplay the fact that, yes, we got these names a week ago, but we all know that I like to go down rabbit holes. And I know that, well, I say I like to go down rabbit holes. I'm not the only member here that went down rabbit holes. All of us have done research on all 3 of these individuals. All of us have watched their interviews at other municipalities. We've all Googled them. We've read news articles about them. We've dived into their resumes. So I'm not going to downplay the level of information that I have on all 3 candidates. All 3 candidates are, well, I'm not entirely 100% happy with the process we went through. All 3 candidates that came out as finalists are more than qualified for the town manager position in Auburn. They all have their pluses, they all have their minuses. I think we've all seen it tonight. All 3 interviewed very well. But in my mind, I'm ready to vote tonight. I wanted a wide open process. I wanted a quote unquote nationwide process. I wanted to use a private consultant, not somebody internal. I wanted them to go out to recruit candidates, to advertise in the larger community. I wanted that vetting process because my goal was to see if there was better people. And no offense to our staff, I think that succession planning is important, but I also think that when you only look internal, you lose a lot of capability for new ideas, new technologies to come in. So I wanted that process to play out since this is, as Mr. Carpenter said, the first time since 2009 when we were going to go out and bring in a new town manager. We've done that process. There are pluses and minuses of that process, but I don't think anything that I'm going to learn or somebody else is going to bring up over the next week, or as Mr. Carpenter said, he's going on vacation, he will not be able to do the additional research he wants. So we're now talking approximately 2 weeks to be pushed out. I don't think there's any new information that's going to come to light in the next 2 weeks that's going to change my mind on who I feel as though is the best candidate based on my research, based on my experience, based on reading their resumes, listening to their questions today or their answers, and their follow-up, and it's just to the prepared questions, but also the follow-up questions that we all had. So if the board wants to vote tonight, I'm prepared to vote tonight. If the board decides to wait, that's fine. However, I don't think my mind's going to be changed in terms of who I think is the best candidate is out of the three.
And I guess I'll say I agree and disagree, because I didn't go down rabbit holes. And I also know that we had 1 hour with residents, and I would like to hear residents. And if people say, well, let's meet in a week, I did tell the chair I would make time on my vacation to meet next week. And that's fine. But as a board member, I think I have always operated, if one of us has an issue, and I think I've articulated my issue pretty broadly before we even had interviews, I have always erred on the side of giving the board members the opportunity to do what they ask us to do. Now, as a selectman, I have not experienced that very often, but it is something that this is a decision that all 5 of us should make. So if 3 people want to make that decision, I mean, I've been there before too, but the reality is I'm asking you to give me time, giving the residents time to process these interviews and give us feedback. Now, if you guys do that differently, that's fine. That's obviously, you're elected just like I am, but I'm not going to vote for a candidate tonight because this is a public process, and I'm seriously telling you, I'm not ready to make a decision tonight.
Madam Chair, if I may, I'm ready to make a decision tonight, but it doesn't sound like that's the consensus of the board. So perhaps we can schedule a meeting in 1 week that would give community members time to reach out and offer any input or comments they might have about the candidates. Perhaps there are department heads or town employees who would also like to offer opinions on the candidates. But 2 weeks is a long time to wait for a decision. So perhaps we can have a meeting in a week, and perhaps you could find an hour to join us remotely and to attend that meeting. So then we'll all be able to vote in that one night.
So I guess originally it was if Mr. Carpenter is willing to meet on his vacation, which in his opening remarks, he wasn't quite willing to, and he will have the time to do the research, then I'm fine waiting a week to provide him that time, that courtesy time to research more and to make his decision. Initially, it sounded like he was going on vacation and he did not want to take the time on his vacation, which I fully understand. I'm one of the few kind of nut jobs in this position that I call in from the ice cream shop in Dennisport when I'm on vacation. I don't recommend other people do it. However, a week is fine. 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think that's beginning to be excessive. If we're talking week, Thursday of next week or Wednesday of next week, depending on Mr. Carpenter's availability and assuming we're all available as well, I'm fine with that, provided that, we can move forward at that point.
So Thursday is really the only day I can do it because I'm going to not have internet connection. So that's the other reason why I'm saying, and it's not 2 weeks, it's like 10 days. But nonetheless, I'm happy to meet my board members part of the way, if they're willing to meet me part of the way.
Are other board members available on Thursday?
Yep.
Is there a particular time on Thursday that would work best?
I'm going to be 3 hours behind you, so it's really going to be what works for you guys because I'm going to be 3 hours behind anyways.
So on Thursday, I have a work commitment until 6 o'clock, and giving me time to travel here. Our normal start time of 6:30 would be preferred for me.
Would 6:30 or would 7, a little bit of a buffer be better? Because that puts it at.
6:30 should be
Okay.
fine.
Would 6:30 work for you, Mr. Carpenter?
Good?
Okay. Mr. Chambers?
Just confirming the 22nd.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's going to push ZBA out of this room, though. I believe the ZBA is a meeting, or ZBA is a meeting.
I do believe that board meetings trump all of
Oh,
them.
no, yeah, I know we pushed them
Okay.
out of the room, that we trumped that
Yeah.
decision. I'm just raising the thing that on the 22nd, I believe they are taking up Perry Place.
Okay.
And have to vote that night, just keeping that in mind. However, the 22nd, if that's when Mr. Carpenter is available, that's when Mr. Carpenter is.
Okay.
I would say if ZBA needs this room, we should look at another room
Certainly.
so that we should give them, because they're going to have a crowd, and
That's fair. Certainly.
there are other rooms that we can use. The police station won't kick us out unless they have training, and certainly the superintendent and the school committee has been very generous with their space as well. West Street is most
you.
likely open, so that's another location we can do where we can be on TV and have access. So I would not want to take the ZBA out of this space, because I know they're dealing with an issue that is going
That
to
is very
drive a lot of people into the seats, so.
That is very fair. I am happy to work with the office to find space for us to hold a meeting as well.
So I'll make a motion that we schedule a meeting next Thursday, the 22nd, location to be determined, at 6:30.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The chair is a yes as well. So then we would just need a motion to adjourn.
Happily make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair is a yes as well.